What is going on, and welcome back to Memes and Markets. Keith, how are you, man?
Today is the best day of my life, Ben. How you doing?
Today is a fantastic day for me, too. We got Asian Dad Energy, one of my favorite YouTube follows as of late. So, hello, welcome to the show. Let's give you the opportunity to give a brief introduction to everyone, and then we'll get into it.
Hey there. Thanks, Ben and Keith, for having me on today. My name is Asian Dad Energy, or at least my handle on YouTube. I am a recently laid off ex-big tech software engineer with 25 years of experience in the tech industry. As kind of a self-therapy, I started uploading vlogs of me just ranting on YouTube. And I think that's how maybe some folks have found me. But nice to meet everyone, and get ready to enjoy this podcast.
100%. So, you're one of the only people that I've heard it pronounced vlog. Is that from your technical background for why you say it like that?
Nah. So back in the day, like in the early 2000s, when video recording was first kind of took off a little bit, people used to call it vlogs.
Okay.
And so that's just how I call it.
That's awesome.
I guess I could try to call it vlog, but it just sounds a little unusual
don't.
for me.
Don't. I love it. Honestly, that was something so cool. I was like, I love how he says that. So no, that's awesome.
So you're blowing up on YouTube, man. Like, you started this 3 months ago. Is that proper?
Yeah, just about.
That's absurd. So when you started this whole thing, did you expect to get this kind of attention?
No, not at all. So here was what's happening, right? I had been laid off for a couple of weeks at that point, and I was in this huge downer mentally, just not knowing what to do, how to move forward, kind of feeling a little depressed, maybe more than a little bit. So I am seeing a therapist, right, to talk through things. And the therapist mentioned, like, hey, journaling is a great way of, getting your thoughts out there, and really just like getting your thoughts out and feeling better in the process, right? And so I was actually about to write everything down onto my notebook where I sort of like sketch all of my ideas and stuff, like this book over here. And then I just got too lazy, and I had my camera right next to it. And I was thinking, hey, it's going to be far easier for me just to record my internal monologue than to spend all this time writing it down. So I did that. And I had this YouTube channel that I actually had set up for something completely different months beforehand. I'm like, let me just post it up here. Totally didn't expect that response. I was actually just trying to do this as a form of self-therapy.
That's the best stuff, honestly, because so like Keith started YouTube, what was it, 8 months ago now, 7 months ago, Keith?
Yeah, about 9 now.
Yeah.
Yep.
And very similar situation. Both of you guys were just being real, honest, and like sharing your experience. And Keith had a video, one of his like first 10 or so, when that got over 1 million, right? Which one was the
Bond
one?
video?
Yeah,
somebody just copied that video again, or the title
another
again.
Copy.
Yes, and people are calling him out. It's funny, man.
That's a compliment to you. But yeah, Asian Data Energy, your very first video got 1.1 million views. That had to have been pretty surreal.
It was crazy. Like, it was kind of unbelievable because I've never actually done vlogs before, ever. And to see 1 million views is like, wow, I must have struck a nerve or something to get that kind of response.
Oh, definitely. I think your situation is one that either a lot of people are going through in particular, or it's one of their biggest fears that will happen to them. So I think you talking about it open and honestly, especially given 25 years in tech, like it's not like you were some recent grad, which is what typically gets talked about. So if you mind, like walking us through the experience of like when you got laid off, if they told you why you got laid off, and then bring us to your journey to YouTube.
Yeah, sure. So, I've been working in tech for many, many years, right? I was kind of like a senior level enterprise architect at the big tech company that I'm working with. And in recent years, certainly after the whole COVID bump, right, there's just been a lot of layoffs in big tech in general. And it got to the point where it was just happening in waves. You could expect on any given year, you'll have at least one big round, sometimes multiple big rounds, right? And so last year, I had already experienced a couple of years of this. So I sort of like in the back of my mind, I knew it was coming at some point, right? But what happened on the ground was I had really great relationships with my management and executive leadership. And I sort of caught wind of this along the grapevines that, hey, this is coming and I'm likely to be impacted. And at the same time, I also caught wind of like, hey, there's other folks within our sort of business unit and group that's impacted. A
Mm.
couple of them fairly junior folks. At that point, I had a lot of sort of thoughts in my head just about the nature and the purpose of working in tech and whether sort of like it's worth it from a personal growth, from a time with family, the point of life and existence perspective. So I had a lot of these questions swirling in my head anyway at that point. So when the layoff came, I sort of was confronted with a choice where I realized, hey, these other guys in my group is getting impacted by this thing, right? Is there anything I could potentially do? And so I sort of worked the grapevines a little bit, and I got our positions on that layoff list swapped, where I bumped myself to the top of the
Wow.
list, and that sort of can then buy them a little bit of time. Um, Now, with everything said, right, these sort of layoffs, as I understand it, there's really no escaping it. So even if I tried hard and I threw people under the bus or whatever I could do, I may be able to save myself once,
Mm.
but eventually when the next round comes along, I'm going to be cut no matter what. So I sort of was very clear on that going into the situation. So I was thinking, hey, if that's the case, let me buy these junior guys a little bit of extra time before the next round,
Wow.
and I'll just gracefully exit. So that's when I sort of work this thing, right? Now, to the credit of my big tech employer, they were super kind of chill about it in the sense that they gave me a very, I would think, generous kind of severance package. We sort of got a garden leave where I'm still on the payrolls, but I could look for jobs outside. There was a very good severance. They sort of gave stipends and all of that. So it was a very kind of amicable parting, if you will. But even afterwards, that's still like I was still kind of like shocked and I
Mhm.
was still kind of depressed. So it's an interesting journey. And I didn't really expect it. I
Mhm.
was thinking of it, but not expecting it to happen so soon. But it
So
happened.
that's super admirable of you to make that sacrifice to put yourself in the top of the list. I don't think many people would do that. So was it just the fact that you were already having these internal debates that made you do that, or what was the primary motivation?
So there were a couple of different things that kind of was going on in my head, right? One is the whole trade-off of like, hey, the hard work, the building things, building software that may not actually matter
Mm.
questions. Like these sort of existential questions, right? It's like I'm trading my life, my time with family, all of this stuff, right, for this paycheck, and is that a worthy trade? That's the first question, right? The second item is that our family has been pretty frugal, really ever since 2008, the great financial crisis. That crisis really shook me up, and I think in hindsight it was a good thing. That scared the crap out of me at the time because all these people, like super senior, like capable engineers, were getting laid off left and right. So that freaked me out. Then I started kind of saving more money, getting out of debt, right? Investing the money into prudent investment assets. And so by the time my layoff came, right, I sort of like was at the point where it's like I didn't really need to work to pay for my very kind of frugal and modest living expenses. So there's that second angle of like there isn't like a financial need to for me to keep going as well. It's nice. The money is nice. Don't get me wrong. Big tech salary is very nice. I'm not complaining about the huge paychecks. But there wasn't like, hey, if you don't work, you're gonna starve to death type of threat either.
Mm.
So those two factors sort of just almost like nudged me over
Got it.
the cliff here.
And so even after doing that, you said that you dealt with some mental struggles after doing so. Was that because of the lost identity, or what was that from, if you can put your finger on it?
Yeah, so it felt like everything. Like the first maybe 3, 4 weeks, it was all of these emotions, like disorientation, like I was shocked. I felt numb by the whole experience, right? And then that quickly sort of transitioned into a kind of like sadness or depression. It's like I was grieving about this thing that I spent so many years working on, like my, as you say, my identity as an engineer, as a technologist. It's like one of those things. If you're doing it every day, it becomes sort of like a part of you,
Totally.
and it's like something was ripped out of me with this thing. And it's like you go through your day feeling like something is missing.
Mhm.
It's almost like you lost a friend, almost like you lost a family member. I know it's crazy. This is like a job working for a corporation, but it's like you lost a part of yourself. And that's what
Totally.
it felt like. I was so depressed for a while. And then the other thing, emotion that I felt is I felt ashamed because it's like that first month was holiday month. It was December, right? And so I had to meet up with like my family and my
Mm.
wife's extended family, and then our friends, and all of these cringe parties where people are like, "Hey, how's the work going? Hey, how's the big tech company doing?" Like all of these questions, and it's so shameful and embarrassing, even though there's no justification for it. But I felt so ashamed to say, well, I'm not working here anymore. I got to go do something else. I'm working for myself. That's it. Oh yeah, that's it. I'm working for myself. But it's cringe, and that kind of emotion was very strong. The other thing I want to mention is LinkedIn.
Mm.
Man, I have, I had never thought much of LinkedIn, but after my layoff, I kind of have grown to despise that platform.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know how like Instagram has this effect on sort of like teenage kids, right? Mostly
Yes.
teenage girls, because that it introduces this sort of toxic comparison with completely unrealistic portrayals of people, right? It's like LinkedIn does the same thing for white collar workers, man.
1000%.
It's like I open up the feed, and the feed will algorithmically like select the things that cause me the most like anxiety and insecurity. Be like, your friend has now achieved the height of like the corporate ladder. He is at the pinnacle. Or like your other friend or colleague, they have discovered this amazing thing and will be promoted to VP instant. It's like every post is like that. And it honestly, it made me feel so ashamed and like so small, and like I'm like the biggest loser on planet Earth. Like everybody else is successful except for you. That's sort of like the feeling of LinkedIn. So that was like the first like month, maybe month and a half of the experience, right? And then my mood got better sort of after that. But that's the initial kind of feelings I had.
That's so fascinating. It's crazy how you're right. Like whenever you do stuff that's not the norm, the social costs are often like just as high as the financial ones too, because you know that you're gonna have to explain why you're doing what you're doing to so many people, and you know they're not going to understand it. How did your family respond when you told them that you weren't working there anymore? Like, was there any reactions that come to mind?
Yeah, so my immediate family, like my dear wife, she actually supports me 100%.
Amazing.
So like she's like, hey man, do whatever you want. You,
That's
you
awesome.
earned this. Like you suffered long enough with this. That was her exact words. And so I'm always appreciative of her for saying that. My kids are oblivious, all right, because they go to school, right? They see me doing something, and they come back and I'm doing something. So hey, I'm as far as they know, hey, I'm a software engineer doing stuff.
It's no different to them.
Yeah, the extended family is kind of cringe. Okay, like most people sort of like when they hear that I'm not working for big tech anymore, they sort of just like freeze up and stop talking or poking about it. Like, oh, okay, yeah. Uh, so that's not that comfortable. My parents, it's sort of like a process for them. Like first, it was shame, typical Asian family
Yeah.
shame. Like you have fallen from the pinnacle of your career. You have dishonored yourself. How will you ever like get back to like this prestigious like whatever place that you were? And it was hard for me to take initially. Then I think over the course of months, sort of my parents gradually kind of came around of like, oh wait, all these other people are also getting laid off in like huge, ridiculous numbers. So maybe you're not so bad after all. You're just a little bit bad. That's sort of like where we are right now.
Hey, that's an improvement.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I have to deal with these things, but that's life, you know.
So,
Totally.
so the thing that I'm super curious about is you don't really seem that old to me. You seem pretty young for someone who's at a place where you could just not be working.
Thank you. So I'll tell you the secret. Okay. The secret is I get to work out and eat right every day for the last like almost 4 months at this point.
Very
So
nice.
I have lost a lot of weight
Nice.
since I've been laid off. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but I'm
Right.
like running on the treadmill back there an hour every day.
Wow.
And you know,
Yeah, you're
cooking my own meals, organic, healthy vegetables and fruits. So I'm feeling better too.
That's
I'm
cool.
feeling younger too. But Keith, to your point about how to do this, right? I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not qualified to be giving any sort of financial advice at all. But what I can share is what we did, right? So we started this journey. My wife and I, we were in a huge amount of debt. Okay, like we had like almost 150 grand of educational debt mainly. I had my undergrad that I of course didn't pay off. But even by the time we got married, right? Like this is like late 20s, didn't pay off the school debt. I was just paying the minimums. My wife also had the school debt. So us putting it together, it's like 6-figure sum of debt that was there, right? So what we did was once 2008, 2009 came around, that sort of scared the bejesus out of us. And we started like thinking about, we got to pay off this debt ASAP Rocky, right? And so we really, really kind of made our lifestyles a bit more frugal to try to save the money to pay the debt. And then on the side, I was working in consulting as a software engineer at the time, right? But on the side, so this was like 2010, right? This is when the iPhone had just dropped for a couple of years and like the Android phones were first coming into the market. So I created this like moonlight side business, making apps specifically for Android phones. And so I coded all of these generic cookie cutter apps like bird manuals, right? Or kitchen timers, like flashlights that you would blink at night and you would run like, in the park. These sort of apps. And at the time, back in 2010, 2011, there were very few apps in the Android marketplace. And so there was this brief period of time, maybe like a year or two, where like any app would make money. Like you can imagine the dumbest possible app idea, and then somebody would pay for it because the marketplace was so small. And so, like at the time, every one of these ridiculous apps that I pushed up there, they all sold. Every single one of them sold. And it got to the point where like I was making 6-figure, like 1 year, this was 2011. I made like 100 grand from these ridiculous like cookie cutter apps.
Wow.
Yeah. So I took that money along with the frugality, and then we were able to pay off all of our school debt. And so that then freed up a bunch of money, right? And so we kept saving the money, and then we use the money to sort of acquire assets, right? Meaning like you buy a house, you buy a modest house, right? Like where we did. We didn't go and buy a McMansion of any sort. A modest home that's within commuting range of work. And that allows you, because the house size is modest, it allows you to pay off the mortgage more quickly, right? Not over 30 years, but over just a few years because it's a modest size. Similarly, from the savings, you can take that money, you can put it into investments that will earn dividends and interest, right? So like financial investments, mainly for us, it was index funds. equities-based index funds in the S&P 500 and bond kind of like broad market bond funds for the most part. So that sort of allowed us to kind of build a financial kind of cushion or buffer, right? There's also mistakes that I've made, a lot of mistakes. I tried dabbling in like buying individual tech stocks purely based on memes and hype, and I lost a lot of money doing that. It happens, right? There's also windfalls that happen to me as well. After a number of years within the consulting industry, I decided I wanted a change, and that change was to go into big tech. And so that was about 7 years ago. So when I joined my big tech employer, that was sort of like when I realized, oh crap, big tech pays like a lot. It like pays way more than consulting, even though consulting already paid pretty well in the first place. And so I was introduced to this whole concept of like RSU packages and then ESPP packages. Essentially, there are these tranches of company stock that they award you for various reasons, right? Or you have the option of buying the company stock at a discount over the market price. So I got all these stocks, but then COVID hit. If you guys remember, like with COVID, right? You had this giant stock market crash initially, like in the first couple of months, and then it sort of went up, and especially the tech companies, because everybody was at home and they needed these digital tools and platforms to do everything. So the stock price of the company that I was working for, they went way up just as I was being awarded the first tranches of these stocks. And so then I'm like, hey, I'm not going to sell this. Why don't I hold on to this stock? Just because it's going up. And I just kept holding and holding and holding. And it just went up and up and up. Like, it went up 50%, went up 100%, doubled, tripled, right? So then I sort of then end up with a big chunk of money in this one stock that I sort of then got scared around 2024. And then it was because this whole AI thing that all the tech company is pushing, I have this strong feeling that it's a bubble and we're kind of living on borrowed time. And it may be, the feeling may be true, maybe it's false, maybe I'm wrong or whatever, right? But it spooked me enough that I'm starting to sort of sell this big tech stock one chunk at a time. But I have to be careful because long-term capital gains, there's a tax implication if you try to sell it all at once, right? So I'm trying to do it a chunk at a time to get it out with a minimum amount of tax penalty. And it's going to take me some time. But if you put all of this stuff together, right, that's sort of how we built this financial cushion whose interest and dividends and rents would pay for our living expenses. Long answer to a short question, Keith, but does that sort of answer it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's super interesting, man. I feel like being in tech at the right time can really, really have a massive impact on just upside. So you've done the right things also in taking advantage of that opportunity as well. A lot of people might not be as cognizant of the fact that you're sitting with that much wealth in one stock, right? That's a lot of risk that people take on in their lives and don't think about. So very, very intelligent of you also to get that in order and think about the ways to divest from that.
I think really emphasis, and I try to emphasize it. I'm not sure if folks understand that or not, right? If you look at like media, the way they talk about like finances or building up that cushion, right? It's this impression that it's the person that does everything, right? It's like, oh, if you just work hard enough, right? If you methodically do this, then this will then happen for you. To a degree, I agree with that. Like people should work hard. They should be frugal. They should invest, and they will improve their situation if they do that. But I think, at least from my experience or empirically, as you said, the timing and the luck factor, it's a disproportionate impact on things, right? Like you could in tech, right, where I have experience, You know, the guys that entered into tech in the late 90s, early 2000s, like if you could qualitatively measure their skills, right, against, for example, the junior engineers that are getting to tech today, they would not measure up. The crop of engineers today, in my opinion, is way more excellent from a skill perspective than these guys. But it's purely because of the timing that they're able to essentially reap the benefits, right? They were able to get those stock packages before the stock market valuations went crazy. And so it's almost like yes, your own effort, initiative, and discipline plays a part, but it's kind of my opinion, as crazy as it sounds. But I feel like at this time, it seems like luck and timing plays a bigger part. I know it's crazy, but it seems like it based on evidence that I'm observing.
And I, in no way, by the way, meant to in any way try to diminish, right, the things that you've done and how you've gotten to where you are. Um, and I greatly respect your ability to, in any way, look from the outside and see that some of that plays a role. But yeah, no, I mean, both of the things that you've said, I mean, there's no way that you get to that position without having done the things, without having been on the right path, without having, prepared yourself for all of the things that have come your way. So I do want to be super clear about that. I realized as I was saying it, it could have come off and but you didn't take it wrong. So I really appreciate
All
that
good.
as well.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I think is super cool about your story here that we didn't know until just now is how you've been able to take care of yourself a little bit. I think that's really, really cool. When we look at America right now, the state of this country is it's really bad. From when we look at the health perspective, the whole obesity thing that we have going on, and we've also got right this past week we saw all of these like warehouse fires, and we see these AI CEOs getting attacked, and people are just really feeling a huge crunch right now, and people are unhappy. But I really think it's so wild to me that just a few months off of work and you've just like completely reshaped your body. You said you're feeling better. How much of a threat do you think it is to people in their work lives, like to not be thinking about their health? I mean, do you think that you could have potentially been in a different path if you were still working, or is it not that serious and just something that you feel good about having changed?
I think it's very serious, Keith. Um, when you're working, right, especially if you're working in like a cognitively intensive white collar profession like tech, there's a lot of like intangible aspects of your life that you let slip by the wayside, right? Your health is probably the most obvious aspect of it. You don't take the time to eat right. You don't take the time to sort of like work out, get enough sleep. You don't take the time to nourish and take care of your own physical body. So that's the most obvious sign. But also there's sort of like the mental and the spiritual side of it as well, right? Like imagine when I'm working this much at work and constantly focused on what's going on there, right? The various projects, initiatives, timelines that are happening. I just didn't have the mental bandwidth and capacity to sort of fully engage with my family, with my wife and my kids. And sort of like that engagement, there's some almost like priceless moments that comes from that engagement, right? Like for example, I had the time over the last couple of months to help my son with a science project. He's in the STEM program of our local high school to help him with this project. Okay. And to help him essentially create a hypothesis and figure out ways of implementing it. Like that was such an incredible kind of bonding moment. Um, at least I thought so. Maybe he thinks I'm a lame, like old dude over there. But for me, it felt like incredible. Okay. That would have just not existed if I was still working. All right. So there is that mental aspect that work almost like it cheats people of those experiences in a way. And then there's sort of like the spiritual part of it, right? In the sense that like people who are doing things that are kind of not of their own volition, So like when you're working, right, you're doing this set of preset things. Every task is different, but they follow these broad kind of patterns, right? You got your TPS reports, you have your sprint review, you go through features, build things. What ends up happening in my observation is that my mind would kind of almost go on a kind of autopilot mode. It's not that I'm not there and I'm not doing the work, but it's just that you sort of gloss over your experience and your reality to get through the workday and the work week. And you don't even realize that, or I didn't realize that until I stopped working. Because after a couple of months of being laid off, I had to fill my time somehow, right? And every day I deliberately, intently fill my day when the kids are in school with activities that I choose, right? Like deliberate choice of activities. And the weird thing, and I'll get back to the spiritual aspect, is that when you're deliberate and cognizant about what you're doing every day and all the time, you seem to experience, or I seem to experience more life happening in the same amount of time. It's a really weird experience, but like imagine a work week. All right. That work week feels to me like it was like a couple of days back when I was working. Now the same work week feels like twice or even three times as much things have happened. And it's because my mind is off of this sort of autopilot treadmill. So that's another kind of a big, Keith, in my mind, mental shift, right? That just happened. And it's a positive one, in my opinion.
Very interesting. Very, very, very interesting, man. The other thing that I really wanted to zoom back in on is like this idea of the shame that can come from not being at the big tech job anymore. Because I feel like right now, at least for younger people, like young people probably don't want to work at all, right? If they could find a way to just, you know, be a YouTube person and just whatever, like that's kind of like the goal, right? And also yourself being in a position where you already financially were good to go. How do you think that maybe your upbringing or the culture or anything like that plays a role in the way that people look at working as like a virtue versus financial freedom as the virtue?
That's a really great question, Keith. I think it changes based on the generation involved here, right? Let me paint a picture of what my parents' perspective of success would be, right? My parents are essentially part of the boomer generation that was born right after World War II, right? And this picture is going to sound perhaps unrealistic, but I think it's a true picture. So my mom's vision of me being successful is I'm at the top of this pyramid like corporate hierarchy, okay? Where I would have this corner office, I would have legions of yes men sort of reporting or laddering up to me. I would have a secretary that buys me lunch and so on and so forth. And then I would then sort of like sail off into the sunset at the top of this industry wearing a business suit. Okay. Um, that perspective is a perspective, right? And that perspective comes from my mom's own experiences, in that when she was growing up and when she was in her career, that is the ideal sort of success track, right? It also comes from the perspective of essentially that, like, hey, she never got laid off ever in her life, right? That she was able to have a full career and retire honorably at the normal retirement age.
True.
Now that paradigm obviously has changed, right? Like number one, the corporations are so unstable and layoffs are so frequent that you could never have a stable pyramidal structure like that in the first place. And number two, I think automation and IT has possibly removed the need of the legions of yes men and secretaries running around. I think we have software and apps to do most of that kind of stuff, right? So that idea of shame and the need of being in a corporate or a hierarchical structure, and the only way of measuring success is to sort of like achieve some sort of a level at a brand name company, that is kind of, in my opinion, generational, right, and cultural. The problem, as I see it, is that reality has significantly diverged from that ideal of success, in the sense that the reality of our economy and society may not really be able to sustain this kind of a myth for much longer or at all. Even I think for young people, and I may be off base here, but I feel like for the majority of young people, like the Gen Z guys, like my son or 10 years older than my son, I think what I just described is a fantasy. I think maybe I'm wrong, right? And the truth is that like there is no employment stability that would allow most people to even get onto the rungs of this hierarchy. And the entire economy has changed where the way to getting opportunity is coming hard and fast and much more unpredictably, where you can hop from like nothing to being like a multimillionaire if you just happen to be in the right startup or you happen to have the right opportunity, right? Maybe it is, as you said, you're a YouTuber and your YouTube channel explodes with 1 million viewers, subscribers, and all of a sudden you're now successful. So that paradigm of success, in my opinion, has shifted dramatically, and it's just going to take people's minds some time to adjust to it. It certainly was an adjustment to me, right? I felt like for a time, I felt like all of a sudden I was a nobody. But then, after a while, I realized, hey, there's an intrinsic worth and value to a person, to a man, that is entirely detached from what part of the corporate ladder he's on.
Super fascinating, man. I appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, because the thing that popped out the most to me was just how nonchalantly you talked about having these apps that you were just making six figures off of in a year as well. I'm like, that's probably the most impressive piece of the entire story. Is you're working these jobs and doing all of this stuff, and that's just something that was just happening. And yet, like the amount of pride around that it doesn't feel like it's super high, right? But that's probably the most interesting thing that you were able to do throughout all of this as well. So, um, moving forward, a lot of people in the audience today are in the position of trying to figure out what on earth they should be doing. We had a specific question that I'd like to address as well from Bet on Chris. He said, changing careers from sales slash computer science. Would like to know Asian Dad's thoughts on pursuing a Security Plus cert to get into IT entry level. From his perspective, is this viable?
Mm, that's a great question. Nothing is impossible, right? You could get into any career if the planets align and your will is strong enough to get in there, right? Nothing's impossible. But we also have to talk about probabilities. Right now, man, the IT tech market is saturated. It is really saturated right now. Because think about what's happening, right? It's like we're on average losing between 50 to 100,000 IT workers in the United States. And I think both of you guys are based in the US, right? And this has been going on now for more than 2.5 years, right? So if you crunch the math, what that should tell us is that there is 1 million plus, possibly 1.5 million qualified IT workers, your engineers, software developers, QA engineers, all right, security, network engineers, all of these guys in this market, right? And I don't think any of them want to go work at McDonald's or to do Uber Eats. They all want their professional jobs back, right? Now consider, for many years at this point, all of the government talking heads, the CEOs of major tech corporations, they've been asking young people to, learn to code, right? Why don't you learn how to code, bro? And this has totally altered now the demographic makeup of our engineering schools. If you look at like engineering programs in major US universities, right? It's an ungodly number of young people are pursuing computer science over all other engineering disciplines. I think the number got as high as like 45 or 50%. Like imagine 50% of all engineers were graduating as computer science. So there's this insane flood of engineers coming out of school now competing with those guys who got laid off, right? And then into this mix, you have to throw in like all the big tech corporations and actually many corporations, right? Figuring out like, hey, overseas, there's like 3, 4, 5 times as many qualified people with a much lower cost of living, right? So naturally, companies are setting up these essentially, offshore development centers in places like India or the Philippines or Eastern Europe or whatever, right? Where the average cost for a developer of the equal kind of capability or level is a third, a quarter, maybe a sixth as much as their US counterpart. So that's sort of the third kind of group of people that you're competing against at this point. Then we have to throw in all these AI tools that are coming out, right? I thought AI tools were a joke for a long time, for years after ChatGPT came out. But I will say at this point, within the last 6 months, maybe less, maybe 4 or 5 months, I feel like the quality of AI code generation tools, especially coming out of Anthropic, so all the Claude code and the later Claude models, I feel like it's sort of, there's been a paradigm shift where the quality suddenly got way, way better. In terms of the output. So now AI, at least for entry level junior software engineers and junior IT guys, it's a real competition at this point. So that's what I'm saying. Anything can happen. You have a chance of getting into anything, right? But in this sector, I feel like the probability of somebody breaking in is not high. There's just a lot of headwinds here.
My man said the planets gotta align for you to get in over there. No, no, just poking fun. But so the thing that I wanted to follow up on there was you talked a little bit about how there's multiples of people who are outside, for instance, of the United States who might be able to do these jobs at an even cheaper rate, right? I mean, you've got countries like India, maybe even some competition with with places like China and so on, Pakistan. Um, huge, huge swaths of talent, and they're all going way harder than the average American person is to be able to get access to opportunities. Um, what I wanted to ask is, I know you also have some thoughts around the H-1B visa program in the United States. Can you talk to us about, first off, what is that? Because we heard a lot of hoopla about it last year when Trump was potentially making some changes to it. And so what is it, and what impact does that have on the tech field?
Sure. So to my understanding, the H-1B program is a program that would bring in top tier overseas talent into the United States for a range of STEM fields, right? Like science, technology, engineering, math, not just tech. It's the entire sort of envelope of STEM fields. And the idea is that these top tier talent would then address job shortages of talent within the US economy, right? So, like, you really need this really smart engineer for this specific discipline or this specific niche. And we just can't find one anywhere in the United States. That's where an H-1B engineer would be properly kind of like allocated to solve this need. So the program on its face value sort of makes sense to me, right? My gripe with the H-1B program is that it's dysfunctional. It doesn't actually solve its original stated problem. What it's sort of doing is it's being kind of misused, if you will, or manipulated by all sorts of actors. I think all parties have blame here. Like the corporations, they misuse the H-1B program. The middlemen companies, so like smaller staffing agencies, they abuse this program. And then some of the H-1B engineers themselves, they also abuse this program. So there is a lot of blame of this dysfunction, in my opinion, that to spread around across. But the bottom line is the program, in my opinion, is not, even in its current sort of reformed state. I know Trump did make some changes, right, to the program. Even in this reformed state, I don't really think that it's actually solving its intended function. It's not performing as it's designed to do. What we end up with is essentially H1B, some H1B employees. I'm not saying all, because I've known a lot of very talented, capable H1B engineers. Some of my mentors were H1B engineers. So there's no question that there are top tier talent that rightfully is being identified and being plugged to solve gaps in the market. But there's also H1B engineers that are not top tier talent, right? That are less qualified or maybe even unqualified for the work that they're doing. There is manipulation and fraud that's going on here at some level. There's also, on the other side of the coin, right? There is a lot of exploitation of H1B engineers that's happening, right? Like employers getting them to work more hours than they signed up for, right? Putting them into poorer working conditions, like, hey, we're on call for this application. It's the holidays. No, you go do this as an H1B engineer. What recourse do they have, right? They need the employer to sponsor their visa and eventually to sponsor their green card. So it's sort of like there's a lot of victims to this kind of program. This sort of exploitation has a flip side, which is even worse, which is having a group of people that you as a giant corporation can exploit. It sort of then devalues the worth and leverage of American engineers. And that's another bad thing, because essentially, you know what it's like? It's like as if all of a sudden, if we allowed indentured servants, right? Any employer will be like, hey, oh, you American worker, you don't want to face these aggravating working conditions or be underpaid. Well, I got my indentured servant right here that I can just push and bully and get out of him what I need. So essentially, it also harms Americans. And it harms a lot of really good, hardworking H1B engineers, right? The guys that are making money, I'll tell you who's making money from this. The corporations are making bank from abusing this program. The middleman companies, I've dealt with a few, mostly based out of New Jersey, they're making bank too, all right? And then you have like scammers. I don't think it's all of them, but there's some scammers, individuals that are also taking advantage of the situation. So that's what I think about the H1B.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Very sad to think that that's how that can all go down. Just yeah, the types of people that you see come into the country that are, doing hard work and like putting themselves in the positions to win, thinking that there's a corporation that's like holding their ability to be in the United States over their head. That's super, super rough to think about. Yeah.
It happens here in Canada too. We have a foreign worker program, and it's been just absolutely abused to the point where there are, much like Asian Data Energy said, there are companies that have spun up that like basically that's their whole recruiting function, is that they put these foreign workers into these businesses. And I actually found this out through a very weird connection. Like I saw this coming before most, because I had a summer internship, and we were in this factory in Canada and no one spoke English. And so I was like, how is this possible? Like, how are they all here? And like, why would you hire people that don't speak English? This makes no sense to me. And then they told me, like, oh, there's this foreign worker program where we can pay them like basically like I think it was around the time like half of what you would pay a normal employee. And so then that just snowballed into where now there are people in that program in like every major company here in Canada. So yeah, it's a very, very real thing with these systems. They just so quickly get abused. And so much like you had said, there are great people who are trying to go about it the right way, but a lot of times people take advantage of it, and that ruins it for the rest of people. Yeah. But I wanted to shift the conversation over to AI, because you said a few things in here that may have confused people. So like you said, as a technical person like yourself, that the AI tools are now legit, but you also said the AI is a bubble. So how are both things true at the same time?
Yeah, let me spend some time talking through this, right? AI, in my opinion, is legit in the sense that it's a cognitive tool that reduces the cost of certain aspects of cognitive labor. Okay. So a concrete example of this would be you use a cognitive tool like Claude Code, and you can allow one developer to create large amounts of working code. assuming if this developer or software engineer is appropriately skilled, he would be able to look at the code that Claude is generating and be able to identify the mistakes and hallucinations that sometimes occur. And in doing so, you have essentially increased his productivity manyfold, upwards of 10 times, I believe, safely. Now, there's guys out there that talks about sort of like AI first development methodologies that sort of borders on this concept of vibe coding, which is you just let AI do whatever, right? And you don't look under the hood ever. Those methodologies promises absurdly high rates of labor productivity. Like a developer would be able to 100x his productivity. I don't entirely buy that because I feel like there's great mistakes that can occur if we vibe code. But I think upwards of a 10x efficiency gain is realistically achievable in my opinion. Okay, so that's the one part that as a labor saving tool, cognitive tool, there is real value in AI. You might be able to gain those efficiencies in the real world and scale it out. Now, at the same time, right, there is a bubble. And the reason why there's a bubble, in my opinion, is that we have essentially put all of these investments into these data centers that are being built across the country, right? And these data centers require massive amounts of resources. Like think about all of the energy, the water, the construction resources, all of the precious semiconductor resources that has to be sourced globally, a lot of it from Taiwan and South Korea, right? And there's only a finite supply of it. Like we're talking about hundreds of billions to trillions of dollars capex already spent on this. And that capex is only given because some investors out there expect to be paid back, right? But the question is, how is it going to be paid back? If the use of AI is misinformation and saving of labor, that doesn't actually give back the rate of return that justifies this capex. That's, in my opinion, the root cause of why there's an AI bubble, right? That AI is powerful, it is useful for a work perspective, but the return in the near term does not justify the capex spend that has been spent. And at some point, some factor, some magical needle will show up somewhere to pop this bubble. I don't know what that point is, but logic at least tells me that at some point the bubble will pop. When the bubble pops, right, you may see a lot of companies, tech companies, go bankrupt. You may see the valuation of tech companies go way down, right? But it is my belief that the fundamental technology that's been developed so far, the large language model, the idea of an ecosystem of agentic harnesses and skills and tools, that technology will live on and quite possibly disrupt our civilization, right, in a much more cost-efficient way.
Makes total sense. Yeah, and I share very similar perspectives to you as someone who does use these tools frequently. It is really like the finance piece of it all, where it seems like that will probably cause it to crumble at some point. Do you have any sort of predictions in terms of what you think, just off the top of your head, what you think that might be?
This is a great question. I'm hesitant to make predictions because the market can always remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent, right? Like how crazy or stupid people can be. I feel like there's no limit to that absurdity. So it's hard to say, right? But nevertheless, it would have to be when enough people realizes, oh crap, I'm not getting paid for this. When enough people with money recognizes this fact is when the crash will happen.
Do you think the government would try to bail out that situation?
Oh, that's a great question. If you're talking about the American government, I actually think yes, they would. And here's the reason why I think the answer is yes. If you step out of tech for a second, right, is where I spend most of my time thinking. But if you look at like the broader economy and society, I don't think things are going that great right
No,
now.
no.
Like if you look at even financially, if you look at the S&P 500 index, right, that I love investing into, and if you took that index and you separated the Magnificent Seven stocks
Mhm.
from the other 493, like the other 493 stocks hardly grew at all over the last 5 years. Here's the scary thing. What if you took out only the big tech companies? I think it's like 30 some companies out of the S&P 500. If you remove those, like the other 470 that represents the rest of the real economy, it actually went down.
Wow.
So like in the real world, outside of this digital kind of bubble that we live in the real world, it could be said that society is actually decaying, in that at least economically it's suffering negative growth. But I would think practically, if you drive around the country like we do on our trips and vacations, right, you're gonna see, and maybe Canada is different, but in the United States, right, you'll see infrastructure that's like crumbling, right? You see ghost towns everywhere, you see ghettos in the cities, and so on and so forth, and that kind of real world empirical evidence would tell me that we're dependent on this AI bubble as a way to essentially almost like falsely prop up the economy, to prop
Mhm.
up the numbers saying that the economy is good.
Totally.
And nothing else, no other sector of this economy is actually really doing well. And so if this gets popped, right?
What?
If a government is honest and transparent and accountable, the government would tell the people, dude, this was a bubble. We need to reset, and we really need to like rebuild other sectors of the economy so that it's like a broad-based prosperity can be achieved. But I don't think we have a government like that.
So, do you think that the tech people realize that's the situation, and so that is part of why they know that they will be bailed out, so that's why they're acting the way that they are?
It's hard to say. I think it varies based on the individual
Totally fair.
involved here. I'm sure there's got to be big tech leaders that have a grounded reality of the situation, and they will likely be making plans accordingly,
Mm.
right, for the post bubble era, right? But I also think that at least some folks, I'm not going to name any names in the tech industry, but I feel like some folks that would be almost like the equivalent of con men or snake oil salesmen, in the sense that they may not even have a clear understanding of the tech that their companies are building,
For
but
sure.
they're essentially trying to hype the living crap out of it and then extract as much paper money as possible
Mhm.
in this bubble. That's honestly what I think.
It's totally fair. We talk about the AI hype cycle here all the time because we spend a lot of time on Twitter. So one of the main topics that we talk about is crypto on the show. And so with that, that whole ecosystem lives and breathes on Twitter. And so that was recently. Honestly, we kind of used to own Twitter, Keith. Like 4 or 5 years ago, it really was like a lot of
Crypto
crypto.
Twitter.
Yeah, like it was a big deal, and that has since been absolutely monopolized by AI hype. Like you can't go on there without everybody being told that you've lost your job or like this has been replaced, this has been replaced. It's crazy, and it's because it makes so much money, right? So that's also the scariest part is that they're saying it'll take your job, and it's like, yeah, it might because it might collapse the entire economy. So then there is no job to be had. So it's a crazy complex thing with so many people having so many ulterior motives and money on the line for you thinking a certain thing. So it's definitely a minefield out there to try to find decent information. Where do you source your information from?
That's a great question. So for me, right, I tend to read like technical
Awesome.
publications mainly to try to get an objective opinion on things, right?
That's
So
awesome.
like think like ARS Technica or Slashdot, things like that, right? Something that is relatively truthful, right?
Yes.
Where I objectively do not get my information is from like social media platforms like X or
Yes.
TikTok or Reddit, because the sheer amount of misinformation involved there is there's more noise and signal in those sort of things, right? Another area where I do get my information is to look directly at the source code, right? So GitHub is a wonderful resource. especially for those technologies like the models themselves, or distilled models, or agentic harnesses or frameworks, different sort of training and post-training tools. A lot of them are actually open source. And so you can actually go to Git, check out their repositories, and look at the code yourself. And that for me is actually very, very useful. Like very recently, Claude Code, I think, leaked their source code. So I've been combing over that source code right now. It's kind of disturbing what I'm seeing, but that's a conversation for another day. But the point, what I'm saying is, like, if you want to have an objective opinion on the state of AI, it's better to actually get the information either from the source or from the source code, right? That's going to be more objective than listening to like some bro's comment on a social media platform.
So if you're open to talking about it, why were you concerned by what you saw?
I think mainly it's in the code quality. There's aspects of that. So the code base seems to be almost all TypeScript, at least the one that's leaked, right? What it seemed to me is that there are pieces of code that seem like it was vibe coded. And what do I mean by that? I mean, like imagine functions that have like thousands of lines of code. Um, Functionality that's logically disconnected, all dumped into the same file, things like that, right? Like not even using basic modules and libraries and just implementing it from scratch. These are anti-patterns that you sort of see from vibe coding, right? That a competent software engineer and a competent development squad would pick up through code reviews and not allow this kind of bloat and essentially chaos to be introduced into a production code base.
That makes sense, because if there's this rush to get out products as fast as possible, I'm assuming that they would think we'll get these things so good we can clean those things up with the tools that we'll build with them. I don't know. That seems like some pretty crazy logic that could come crumbling down. But
Ben,
go
the
ahead.
thing that kind of what I was thinking about was, remember they had an article, Anthropic released an article. It was on their way of software development. I don't know if you
I've
remember, and I
not
may
read
have
it.
the link somewhere, but the gist of it, right, is that they saw their software engineers as kind of like an orchestrator for teams of AI agents. Okay. And essentially the orchestrator would take part in the planning of a feature that's being developed. And maybe it's like a large level feature. But in terms of all the execution, the code review, the testing, the integration, the testing, all of it would be essentially an interplay between different agents and sub-agents. And so when I saw that development process, number one, it's kind of impressive in the productivity that they were claiming, right? It's like millions of lines of code that can be introduced. But when I looked at that, I'm like, wait, that's just really one step removed from vibe coding. You're practically a vibe coder at this point, because the human initiative to look at the output at different stages of its development is now so light touch that a lot of things could get introduced into production that way. That was my thought. And as I look more and more at the leaked source code, it seems to be validated, and it's concerning.
Totally fair. Keith, you got something?
Well, Ben, one of the things that we've obviously talked about a lot here on the show is this concept of the whole Bitcoin and crypto thing. Super curious, Asian Dad Energy, what your take is on any of that. Did you go deep into the Bitcoin white paper and read all of that, or what is your take on the whole crypto phenomenon?
Yeah, I'll tell you my my opinion on it, right? So I heard about it early on, right? And from the very beginning, and I did read the white paper, I have a hard time sort of understanding and believing the value of cryptocurrency as a whole, right? In the sense that I didn't see, certainly not the Bitcoin implementation, as an appropriate store of value. Um, I didn't see it as a good or efficient medium of exchange, right? Mainly because of the transactional scalability limitations of verifying those blocks. Um, I didn't see it as a currency. There's you know, but here's the thing. That opinion was after reading more than one white paper, and then on a small scale
Oh no,
I think we lost him.
they don't want us to know the
He was
truth
about to
about
cook. I
Bitcoin.
could tell. That was some good stuff. We lost him. We'll have to email him. I'll say. I'm super curious to hear what he's about to
I
say.
know. I know.
That's devastating.
He's got the keys. He knows Satoshi.
He is Satoshi, bro. Let me send him an email telling him to leave and come back in. But he's awesome, man.
Yeah, I it's funny. The energy is very different, honestly, from the videos that I was watching on his channel. Like he's very like just down to earth. Very cool guy.
Okay, I'm trying to get into my email to send him an email.
But
I think he'll probably join back in
for sure. And one of the things that came up when he was speaking that I was thinking about was how the tokenization of things, right? So one of the big issues that could continue to arise here is if markets continue to go up, right? Because at this point, we pretty much know for a fact that the government is going to backstop in the United States anytime there's a big issue.
Oh yeah.
And so with that being the case, if you're going to continue to move forward with basically, you got to think prices of things continue to get higher. There's stock splits that happen here and there. And then like eventually what has happened is new products get created to allow people to be able to afford, for instance, one share of the S&P 500. Because right now, like for instance, let's say it's like $6,500 for one contract of the S&P 500 on the futures. And that kind of translates over to some of the ETFs. Well, eventually you go up 10x and no one can afford a $65,000 share of that. And so what happens is you get these new products that are like the mini version of whatever thing it was. And so, but like, okay, but what about all of that time in between that 10x, right? People might not have been able to participate. And in fact, marginally every dollar that it goes up, right? People are not able to participate. So what has to happen to some degree if you're going to continue to support these markets and not have people trying to shoot CEOs? Is you're going to have to fractionalize ownership of stocks.
You're dead right.
So that people can participate.
Didn't Robinhood talk about that as well?
Yes. Yeah. They've done some things to make it possible, but it's definitely not the standard. And from a plumbing level, right? Like that's going to have to be how things go.
Yeah. And I remember, never mind. That was about something different. But they're really cringe commercial. Do you remember that? We showed it on the pod.
Yeah. They were talking about the private credit fund. It's a very similar concept, though. I mean, people getting access to the growth that's occurring in the world because it's not happening with their jobs, right? People aren't growing in their jobs.
Yeah, there's such a hoarding of wealth amongst a small group of people where the civil unrest is such an inevitable reality. And that's not something that we're ever like ignorant to, but the problem being there, yes, we should absolutely focus on solving it, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't like navigate the current day situation. Like I think a lot of people have fully checked out. And I think that makes it even more of a dangerous situation. And so that's really what we try to preach here on the show, which I'm sure we'll get to when we get into the community piece, because our last episode, and this is the whole point of this show, right? Is that we want conversations from all over the place. And like someone like Asian Data Energy is such a nice compliment to what we had last. He's back. How are you?
Hey guys, sorry. I had some sort of a network connectivity issue.
No problem. We were on the edge of our seat there, so please proceed.
Yeah. Okay, so we're talking about cryptocurrency, right? So like this is a weird thing, right? So I never could see the value in it, even after doing some research and mining some cryptocurrency. But I did mine a little bit, and it was Monero, and then I switched it to Bitcoin, and I held on to it. And the funny part is, if you look at all the different kind of investments that I am invested in, right, over the course of time, it is the best performing asset of all of them. And over the years, I've had multiple people, like coworkers, some of my relatives, like people I respect, come and tell me, like, man, you don't understand this. This is like the future of economics and commerce. And I'm like, you're right. I 100% don't understand. I don't understand why it has any value above zero, but it does. So I would chalk up cryptocurrency and Bitcoin specifically as one of those mysteries that maybe I'm just too dumb to fully understand, because the value keeps going up and it's a high performing asset. Yeah, I'm perfectly content with admitting when I just don't know something.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're wrong in saying any of that. I just think that where I got to it when I was looking into it was like, why does anything have value? And then from there, that made crypto a lot more appealing to me when I realized how flimsy that foundation was to begin with, and then also how money is created, then distributed, and then also how that impacts our buying power of the dollars itself. So totally fair perspective. Keith, did you have anything else to add?
Well, I mean, the thing that I love about the way that you've spoken about this is like, wow, this man says, I don't get the value of it. And it's something that I just don't understand. And yet there's been a time where you were mining Monero and Bitcoin, right? Like
That's right.
as deep into that as you could have possibly gone, right? Before you wrote it off. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
that's so important, critically important for anyone who's watching this, because there's a very different thing from I don't get this, it's stupid, I don't care, and then not in any way having any exposure to it or experimenting with it and touching it and feeling it, you know.
I tried my best to understand the concept of cryptocurrency, right? And at this point, I chalk it up to probably my own like ignorance, in the sense that I'm just not understanding something fundamental about it. And that's why I just don't trust it or see value in it. Empirically, I just want to point this out, right? Observations in reality has proven my judgment wrong, right? And so I admit that, but I still don't understand it.
It's totally fair.
Very similar to the ideas around what's happening with the stock market and tech, right? It's like two things can simultaneously exist. It could be that all of that is a big bubble and it still continues to go up because there's some support behind it. That's something that's not necessarily all that great for everyone else.
Yes.
So yeah, totally, man.
Totally fair. For the AI layoffs, for layoffs in general from big tech, is that because of AI or were they just overinflated? Are they offshoring? Like, what do you think is the real root cause?
I honestly think there's a couple of different factors, AI being one of them. Okay, so probably the biggest factor is finance. Has nothing to do with tech. So we kind of had a low interest rate environment for many years, right? Leading up to 2023. And that low interest made it really, really cheap for companies to borrow money. And in tandem with COVID and having everybody be dependent on these digital services because they're stuck at home, there were huge incentives for tech companies to overhire people. And I chalk it up to the very human frailty of lack of long-term planning. The leadership of those companies probably didn't think that the gravy train was going to end the way it ended. And so they were stuck with too many people, right? So number one, there's more people than really they needed. But number two, you also have on the one hand the whole offshoring scale up that's happening, right? Like, hey, all these guys who are pretty good developers and they're cheaper than American developers. I could get 4, 5 software engineers from India, right, for the price of one American software engineer. Why not offshore? As long as you can get away with it. So that's another factor. Why keep expensive US employees when there's cheaper offshore employees? Then the next factor that comes into play here, right, is hey, if you actually laid off a bunch of people and then you go to the media and say, look at our AI tools. Look at what we have achieved, right? With I'm not going to name names, but like one really glaring one would be like Kiro, the internal AWS Amazon coding tool, right? They're like, oh, look at this magnificent tool. It's able to change millions of COBOL lines of COBOL code into Java in like a month, whatever. You don't really know. Nobody outside of these companies know just how efficient it is, right? But if you laid off the guys and then say it's because your AI tools are so incredibly powerful and efficient, that drives up your stock valuation because everybody else will be like, wow, this company must be doing great. They got rid of 10,000, 30,000 of their guys because of AI. So it benefits the leadership of these companies and the stockholders of the companies because it raises the valuation, right? And then the actual impact of the AI tools, I think there's a real impact currently, but it's probably the smallest of the three factors that I described, right? That the impact of AI tools, as I see it right now, is more along the lines of for junior entry level engineers. Because what's happening is it's almost I use Claude every day, essentially. But what it feels like, it's almost like if you're an architect or maybe even like at the level of a technical director, where you used to work with dev leads and mid-level software engineers, and then we have to then sort of like grow a crop of junior level software engineers and grow their experience and skills envelopes, right? All of those layers of humans have essentially been disintermediated by Claude. Instead, you spawn a number of agents, and the agents are sort of doing this grunt work. If you have the vision of what you're trying to build, the feature set that you're trying to achieve, much of that can then be done by agents. So it's really like the entry level junior layers that are being impacted. And depending on the internal processes of these big tech companies, right, how their teams are structured, what sort of development methodology that they're following, these tools can have either high efficiency or low efficiency. It depends on the company and the process.
Mhm.
So that's how I see it, right? It's literally these four things that are happening, right? Interest rate changes, the availability of offshore, market manipulation by saying AI is so great, and then the actual AI tools.
That's awesome. That was a fantastic answer. And yeah, I have firsthand experiences on both these. So I've been employing people from overseas for a very long time. And I've noticed that with these tools in their hands, their ability to communicate has also been dramatically amplified because if English isn't your first language, you can use these tools to translate in real time, which allows for a far better decision and outcome. So that's something that I found was impactful. And then also, my girlfriend works for a fairly big tech company, and I loosely listen when they're on their calls, and they're constantly bringing on more and more people from a different country. And I'm just like, oh, this makes complete sense. And it actually is a lot like what you had said, where they can dump the work on someone who needs it differently, or there's different rules because they don't have to actually be like a full-time employee with all the protections that comes along with that. So yeah, there's so many forces at play here. It's wild to see it all happening, and it's really hard to predict how long that all goes on for.
Absolutely. That's the question nobody knows the answer, right? That this entire spindly structure that has
Mhm.
been sort of created, how long does the Tower of Babel stay like upright, right? Before like it collapses under the weight of its own internal contradictions.
Mhm.
Nobody knows.
Yeah, and also we talk about this a lot on the show where the people who are in this tech bubble, they're so different from, I think, a lot of the rest of the world, and now with AI becoming so front and center, it's a lot of these people who have pretty well only existed within Silicon Valley having to talk to the world, and that just makes their isolation all the more apparent, right? Like, the things that come out of their mouth, it's like, "Oh, you guys only talk to each other," and this is, like, wildly clear. Is when you're working remotely, did you notice that, like, tech were very different people than people you came across in your day-to-day life?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the bubble effect is real, right? Because you're working within one sector, but also just sort of like the personalities that gravitates towards tech and especially software engineering, right? It's a almost like a subset of the human personality range. What I mean
Totally.
is not just like, the engineers are really smart from like a math logic kind of perspective, right? But it's also sort of like social interaction, the ability to socialize and empathize with people, the ability to read a room, right? Of like, hey, what are the cues that are happening? What are the social dynamics that are happening? Like in general, well, software engineers are kind of like a rare breed, if you will,
Totally.
right? Their personalities are more pivoted, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but
No,
in
I
my
I think you're
observations and
right.
opinion, it's more pivoted towards like the math analytical logical side and less towards like, hey, being able to read it doesn't matter how good your code is, the head boss is kind of pissed off about something and something is going to come down soon, that sort of pivot.
Oh, that makes complete sense, and that would only carry over to all the people involved, and I've worked with a fair amount of engineers over the years, and I would say that your assessment is pretty, spot on. Some of the most interesting people I've ever met, but definitely think and operate in a certain way that has a ton of amazing pros when it comes to building things, but then can create some complications with the whole social dynamics of everything else involved.
It's sometimes it's almost sad in my opinion, right? Because like just like you, I had quite a few experiences of engineers like that. There was this one guy I worked with a couple of years ago. Literally, the guy was a genius. Like he was actually a genius. I'm not going to get too technical in this conversation, but basically, you know how when you have to design systems that can take a ton of traffic, like an unbelievable amount of traffic, you have to build essentially a multi-layered caching architecture
Mhm.
because some of that data is dynamic, some of that data is static. The guy was literally, he designed this caching architecture from his mind. It was like the most efficient thing that I have ever imagined. It was essentially caching based on a probability model. Okay.
Wow, that's
And
awesome.
it would do something like reduce the cost, the overall cost of caching by more than half. Okay. And he tried to present this grand vision in a room, and it was a room of technical managers and leaders and a few executives. And I was sitting there, I was almost like in a state of like shock because I just realized that, oh my god, I might be the only person like in this room that realizes the genius of what this man is talking about. Meanwhile, everyone around me, their eyes are just glazing over like, what is this dude trying to say? What the hell is this? I'm out of here. It's like that kind of dynamic. And there's so many engineers that are like that. And it's very unfortunate because if they could only communicate their brilliance to the broader world, I think the world would be a better place for it.
Mm, very cool, man. Very interesting. I'm like imagining because also I don't know if this is necessarily fair, but there can also sometimes with people like that be a little bit of a humility as well,
Oh,
to
totally.
where like if you're not expressing this in a way that's like, I just solved world hunger, like then people
Mhm.
won't pay attention to you, you know?
Yeah, I'm super lucky with, like, our technical lead, he's a lot like that, where when I found him and started working with him, I was like, "How does everyone not realize how smart this guy is?" Because he was doing a lot of what you were describing, right? Like, that systems thinking is not a low cognitive effort, especially because there's so many things that you have to weigh out pros and cons in that and trade-offs. So to build something like that is, like, so unbelievably difficult. So that's awesome.
Absolutely. Lightning round.
Let's do it.
If big tech called you tomorrow with a $1 million per year salary, would you go back?
Oh boy, that's a really tough question. Okay, I think it depends on what the job is. Um, I think I think the salary is less of a concern to me at this point. It's more like, hey, this work that you want me to do, does it actually make a difference? Right? Like if this is solving a fundamental problem that would make the world like a much better place to live in, I'll do it for half. I'll do it for a quarter. Actually, pay me $100,000 and I'll do it.
Wow.
Right. But if it's like, how do we get 20% more eyeballs to click on that lead conversion button? $1 million is not enough to move me at this point.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Super interesting answer, man. Um, I want you to give us the first word that comes to your mind when I say these upcoming words. One of them is first one. Ready? Are you ready for me? Open AI.
Scam.
Google.
Engineer.
Meta.
Lonely.
I like that a lot.
Sam Altman.
Grifter.
Anthropic.
Useful.
Elon Musk.
Mars.
Awesome. Do you have any other ones, Keith?
The last one that we had, and these were actually from a SEPA, your ex-employer.
Honorable.
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
That was a
Fantastic.
great answers. That's so awesome. Well, everyone here, we Asian Data Energy has a hard out, so we want to be cognizant of that. But we want to make sure you go and show him some love. He's linked down below. So the first link in the description box, if you just click his name, it'll take you over to his channel. Go show him some love. Go watch his videos and show him some support. He's talking about everything he's working on, his philosophy, and it's all really good stuff. So I definitely recommend going show him some love.
Yeah, man. And I would say, this was really cool to see the side of you. I would highly, highly, highly commend if you did some live streams, man. I think people would absolutely love that and eat that up. And
Yeah,
people have so many
Thank
questions
you.
for you.
you've got that energy for sure. You'd be very easy to hang out with. So yeah, thank you so much for your time, and
Well,
we
thanks
really,
so
really
much,
appreciate
guys.
it. Of
Yeah.
Yeah,
course.
it's a pleasure. Talk soon. Take care, guys.
Have a good one.
Cool.
Bye bye.
Peace.
Did you have something else you wanted to say?
I think we'll talk about it. I think it would be really cool to have him back on to do the Bitcoin thing. Like, let's actually have that conversation because I can tell there's demand for that.
So Bitcoin thing in what way?
As in, like, what senior software engineer
Doesn't
right
like Bitcoin. Doesn't get
debates
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin with Bitcoin crypto guys.
That'd be super. Yeah, that'd be super cool. I'd be down to talk about that. We'll have to have him on in the not distant future. But yeah, go show him some love. He's linked down below. And yeah, thank you to him for coming on the show. It was a lot of fun. Did you have anything else, Keith, that you wanted to debrief on?
No, not too much. I think we had some funny some interesting comments. Adaptive thinker, you said something during this where it was like how the energy complaint has shifted to the AI situation. Adaptive thinker said 5 years ago, energy was the main complaint about Bitcoin, but now data centers get no scrutiny on such a standard.
It does seem like the puck, or sorry, the goalposts move all the time, and nah, there's a new reason why it can't work.
And Ben, you sent me a really cool video yesterday from Michael Saylor, who was talking about how everyone's attacking the quantum threat on Bitcoin now because everything else kind of failed, right? Was what he was basically saying. He was like, well, the energy thing didn't work and move on and so forth. And the only thing now that they have left on us is trying to attack the quantum security of it all.
Yeah, it's gonna be super insane to see because in all these scenarios that we're outlining, I think that they're going to necessitate money being printed. And so it'll be interesting to see because a lot of times, like what people don't get about, like, say, like an altcoin season and stuff like that is that like the triggers that lead to that happening, right? Like a lot of people think it's like this mystical stuff that leads to these things taking place when really it's largely just the flow of money, right? And then people on the fringe of finance start making obscene amounts of money. So these guys who think they're way smarter than these guys are like, okay, well, if this idiot can make this much money, I'm going to come and take his lunch, right? So that happens, and that could totally happen again. It's just so funny to see. And yeah, Bitcoin's up 9% over the last 7 days.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, with all things considered, I guess it's good. It's such a fascinating asset, right? Like it's down, like 50%. So, and the volatility drag doesn't like you don't account for that in your head. It's like 10% up, right? From being down 50% is also half as significant as it was when you were up at
Totally
that
fair.
$128,000 level. But it's just a highly volatile asset. That's how it goes.
Yeah, the rips up can be also far more extreme than anywhere else too, right? So it'll all come down to, do we get more of that throughout the rest of the year?
No doubt, man. No doubt. Another comment that happened throughout the live was Monkey Business 589. He said, I'm going to open a rehab clinic for XRP holders. I thought that was
I found it.
pretty awesome.
I've been trying to find them to pop them up. We appreciate all your comments, man. It's always so awesome to look at. And I even come back oftentimes and watch them after so that I can read all the stuff that I missed while I was trying to be engaged in the conversation. But yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, man. Cool. Yeah, and then just super fascinated by people like that who just so humbly just do stuff, Like, yeah, I was mining Bitcoin. I don't get it, but I'm mining it in Monero and like all the stuff in the weeds with it, launching apps while working in big tech, making six figures off of that. Like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like all that's going on, and you're just but shame around not having the big tech job. It's kind of funny, and it's not, probably not from himself as much as from external pressures, but that's interesting.
No, totally. It's super cool how modest he was about all that stuff and how he's navigating it all. I think that's why he's blowing up so much, is that a lot of people are so afraid of this or have been through it, and he's just very open and honest about all of it, which I think is a very refreshing thing. Because I think a lot of shame only exists in isolation or in the dark, and so the more you can be open and honest about that. And I also love the fact that he's like, "Oh, I would love to write things down, but it would, like, take too long, so I'm just gonna say it out loud." Well, that's largely why I type my thoughts or say them out loud rather than write them, because my handwriting's horrendous, but it also takes too long. Like, I wanna get the thought out of me.
Mm,
So, yeah, I think that can be a great thing that can also turn into money, right? Like,
crazy.
he went on there to vent, and now he's making a decent income if his videos are monetized, which I'm sure they are. I don't know that for sure, but, with 1,000,000 views on your first video, like, that's
Yeah, you pretty
decent
much
ad revenue.
patched it
Yeah,
immediately, which is so wild to think about. You just go on YouTube and immediately pass all of the monetization requirements.
crazy. So good, man, honestly, so good. Yeah, and
That's
his first
fantastic.
video was, laid off after 25 years in tech, the anxiety, sacrifice, and reality that no one talks about. Pretty fire title too.
Absolutely. One thing that I meant to bring up a lot earlier, for anyone who's still around here, you should definitely make sure that you're here on Thursday. We're going to be doing a giveaway for a Pro Pass to Bitcoin 2026 in in Las Vegas. So if you guys are here on Thursday, we're going to administer that at the end of the live stream. So definitely come through, be around, and we will administer that throughout the stream.
That's sweet. That'll be awesome. Definitely tune in for that. Tell your friends, tell everybody, and, yeah, we'll see y'all on Thursday. Jay Huron said, "BTC is so overplayed. I can't believe you guys don't see it, but you guys are young and made a lot of money in it, so you're blind." I think everyone feels that way about whatever it is that they're in, right? Like, so I'm sure that the Bitcoin people would say the same thing about XRP. If I recall correctly, I believe Jay Huron is a big XRP guy. So yeah, I think everyone's entitled to their own opinion.
Yeah, I totally get it. There was a time where I felt much more that way, Jay Heron. And then I continued to just really evaluate the full breadth of what's happening here. And I actually had I was talking to someone yesterday uh who's actually not an XRP guy, but is constantly around them. And so he watched our Jeff Booth episode and he was like, "Did that change anything for you, man?" And I was like, honestly, it much further solidified it further helped me to really see that there's simply a divergence of worldviews. There's just two totally separate worldviews. And in my eyes, I'm understanding of the fact that I don't know everything enough to say that either one of them could play out, right? I don't think that one necessarily necessitates that the other one loses either. I don't think that.
Definitely
So
not over the short
yeah.
short term.
Yeah, and I guess that's what's antithetical to Jeff Booth, right? Because he's like, "Oh, well, everything goes to zero against Bitcoin," and I'm just like, "Dude, I don't know. I don't know if I feel that way." But I can see though that if that were the case, then I should probably just have a little bit of Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I don't think it's about. I think where tribalism goes too far on this stuff is that the community does make a lot of the value in a lot of these assets, but also the tribalism is where it gets a little too extreme, because then you can become blind.
it kind of makes me also think of this, guys. Like, so we talked about with Leonard when Leonard was on, we talked about the Bible and religion. And one of the things that came up in the conversation was like, the Bible is the highest selling book on the planet. And so the reason that that matters, for instance, if you've been listening to Professor Jang lately, and him talking about the eschatological
Mhm.
eschatological view of the world, which is relating to death, judgment, and the final destiny of the soul and humankind. If the leaders of the world believe in an eschatological eschatological view, then they could end the world because that's what they're reacting from. So it really just comes down to understanding the worldview more than believing in it or agreeing with it. It's like there's other people who are you are participating in society with who have different beliefs.
If perception creates reality, the gatekeeper of perception can create reality, like, out of thin air, right? Like, they can perform alchemy through your own beliefs. So it's
Exactly.
like people who are like, "Oh, I don't believe in this, that, or the other in terms of religion." It's like, if the people in charge do, you should probably, at the very least, understand what their belief systems are, because then that makes their decisions a lot easier to understand and predict.
100%.
He recently Professor Jang went on a show with Sneeko and this other guy who covers similar subjects. He was a Russian dude, I believe he was, and their stream was pretty interesting. I recommend checking it out, if into that kinda thing.
So Jay Heron had a cool response. He said, do we think the big banks will lose their control? And so that becomes right the thing that I think if you're a smart person that cares about Ripple and XRP, that kind of is the end state of the thought. It's like, well, this is the tool that they're going to use to implement their control over the system. Well, Jahiran, I want to challenge this. We have to also look at what is occurring alongside what may. The big banks are structuring themselves to be able to set up crypto buying and selling, as well as to allow people to take loans off of their Bitcoin, right? And this becomes a thing that's actually a key, a flag to me. It's like, wait a minute. They're super interested in taking custody of your Bitcoin. They're super interested in launching these ETFs because there's demand for that, right? That's what they're worried about is how much money can they make? And if, like Jeff Booth was saying, banks want your Bitcoin, right? Because that's actually the thing that they want, then it could be, right, that what's happening here is that the XRP thing is a complete experiment. They're trying to see if it would work. They don't know that. If it does, fantastic. Valhalla to the moon for all of the bankers. But if it doesn't, then they're also going to hedge themselves by having a way for you to give them your Bitcoin, which they could say objectively has had more of a track record. And so, anyway, so that's kind of how I look at it all. At least when I continue to talk to Jeff Booth and hear that, it's like, well, technically, right? The XRP thing doesn't have to work, right? Um, I feel like we've seen in the United States things that governments have tried to do that have not always worked, right? And so, yeah, so that's kind of all I think about. Like, you have to get people to buy into things for it to actually work, and that's something that with XRP, the price only going up at this point would be the only thing that would get people to pay attention to it and believe in it. So, anyways,
It's a super important thing to consider, is because for any type of change like this to take place, it would have to reach a critical mass. So even a lot of people that are naysayers towards Bitcoin, which a lot of the things they do have valid points, I think a lot of people are discrediting or not understanding the fact that this is really a social problem, right? So it's like, even if Bitcoin is not the superior technology for that kind of change to happen, in this scenario, could it reach enough of a critical mass because it's been around long enough and enough money is there where it then leads to that trickle down effect where it becomes the whole system, right? That could play a big part of it, right? Because a lot of people are saying all of these things. I don't think that who are anti-Bitcoin, like, I don't think they realize how messed up the world could get this fast, right? And so I think a lot of people may now soon change their opinions who thought differently of it. And I said this to you all the time, Keith. I'm like, most of the world is either one or two rabbit holes away from being deep in on Bitcoin. And I think it's only a matter of time until, like, the big shows, even like the conspiracy ones, like Candace Owens and all that. I bet you they start talking about cryptocurrency pretty damn soon. And that's not to say that that's not walking us into a bad situation. I just think the conversation will be had regardless.
right, right. No, I mean, I totally see you. I think this past week with all of the stuff happening with these warehouses and people potentially attacking CEOs and stuff, that's when you get really close because I mean, Bitcoin is a weapon, right? Like Bitcoin is an economic weapon. When you really think about it, this is an instrument that people can use as a protest to the system. It is a legitimate way to opt out that creates a lot of pressure and issues for the traditional
Yes.
system.
Great point.
So it does kind of become a little bit more relevant when people start using actual guns and stuff as well.
Totally, right? And the ability to self-custody something, which a lot of people haven't figured out, but I think that resources are there for more people to figure this out at a far faster pace. And so, much like Keith is saying, how much pressure can these existing systems weather, right? They're already pretty scattered as is. Even these people that are fulfilling these things that are happening across the world, like, I see their face when it happens to me. Like, let's say I'll give the example of when I'm in the airport and they're doing all these extra crazy shit that they've just been told to do. Like, they don't want to do that. Right? So imagine a scenario pops up where they have a little more freedom, right? In terms of like, oh, if I put my money into this, I have a little bit more say, or they think it's like a screw you to the man. How many people need to put a small amount of their wealth into something for that cascading of effects to like really change the structures of most things that we do every day? It's not that much.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
So we'll see. So that's why I also like have some optimism here because like let's say that we're not walking into like a horrible situation. Let's say it's the good scenario. Like that could also make things so much better than we've ever seen ever before. Right? We don't have a frame of reference like Jeff always says that we've never lived in a truly free market. Right? So like most of
Mhm.
these people are obsessed with problems that like most people are incredibly well intentioned, right? When they yell about, oh, there's injustice here, there's injustice there, it's like, you are right. But why you think this is happening is not always right. Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like there's
Mhm.
so many people have their different reason for why the world is fucked, but like they all come back to money and it's like, why aren't we looking at like exclusively this? This is like the linchpin of all of this.
Yep. Um, yeah, beating the odds. It is crazy to see how Candace Owens has blown up in the past year or two. It's wild.
It's almost like they let her go so wild with the stuff that she's saying now, man. And and like she usually like most of these claims are like so absurd where maybe like her protection is parody law. I don't even know because some of the things she's saying and she's like full on like I know this for a fact. And then her sources, I'm like, is that factual? I don't know. It's definitely
Yeah.
wild.
I mean, it's funny because one of my really good friends is like super deep into that stuff.
Yeah.
And he was the one who made me aware that she's like getting like a quarter million people on her lives.
Do you know how much money that is,
Oh
man?
my goodness, I can't imagine.
Bro, like she's each episode she's making like millions of dollars, bro, potentially like between
Probably.
sponsorships and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, man.
Also, because I think she did her own movie or like private content. That's where
Mm,
things can go crazy, right? Look how big Netflix became from being like this hub of content, right?
right.
And so doing that your own from a long-term sustainability thing, it's not a sustainable business to get people to just pay for your content unless there's community and things of that nature. But when you change that whole dynamic of it being from a live stream, all you have to do is give like different tiers of access to her, which doesn't have to be that crazy from like a time perspective. And then no longer are you competing with, say, Netflix. It's more so like going to the bar with their friends in terms of how people socially see it, psychologically see it, right? So that's why there's like so much crazy money that she would be making from this,
Yeah. Um, I can't even imagine. And
bro.
that's why I've also like when I looked at that, I was like, oh man, like she's kind of taken like if we could, she's like an index of like what the incentives of the internet have has created. You know, it's like if you could take all of the most polarizing things that are happening in the
Yeah,
world and just like look at how
crank it up.
yeah, it's like that's what she kind of stands for in my eyes. So
Yeah, it's and she's also a wildly skilled presenter.
mhm,
Regardless of what you say about her, I'm sure a lot of the things she's saying will be proven to not be true, but her skill on the camera is not something that you can argue.
for sure. For sure, man.
She's charismatic.
Yeah. Um, so another thing, Ben, that's happening in real time here is uh tomorrow we might be having a surprise stream. And right now the time that's being proposed is 5 p.m. Eastern.
Cool.
Would that time work for you, Ben?
I'll make whatever time that you need.
Okay. So tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern, we're gonna have a surprise stream, everybody.
So turn on your notifications. Someone said that they didn't get theirs today. So every so often, if that's the case, just reset it. YouTube is notorious for that. Not sending notifications to because they want full control over where you go, right? Which is why they just stop showing you your subscription feed because they know based on data that it doesn't necessarily mean you'll have a more enjoyable experience, but you will spend more time.
hmm
Do you know what I'm saying? And that's all
hmm
they really care about. So yeah, definitely always if it's not sending the notification, just redo it again.
Redo it and pull up at the times. You know what I mean? Just pull up to memes and markets. I'll type it in every day. That's what I do.
That's it.
Um, so we can start to dive into some of the news.
Let's do it, man.
Awesome. So there's no shortage of it. Let me tell you, what a wild past weekend and so on. As we've talked about throughout the episode, Sam Altman has suffered two attacks over the past week. One of them was a suspect throwing a Molotov cocktail at his home, according to a company spokesperson. I read somewhere that after that, this person also was making threats at the OpenAI headquarters and has now come out and basically said there was an actual quote from this person who said, I don't know if it was this one actually, so let me not say that, but the second attack that happened was early Sunday morning. A car stopped and appeared to have fired a gun at the Russian Hill home of OpenAI's CEO, according to the newly obtained police report. The reason for one of these, I believe, that came out was basically he was saying that he wanted to keep um, humanity from going extinct, was the words that were being used.
Sam saying this?
No, the attacker is
Got it.
trying to prevent humanity from going extinct, is what they were saying as their reasoning. I don't remember which one of them it was. But moving forward, yeah. So for instance, yeah, okay, here's that from it was from the New York Post. Um, Manic, who threw Molotov cocktail at Sam Altman's San Francisco mega mansion, kept terrifying list of other executives as well. Okay,
Well, especially with Luigi becoming so famous online
facts.
and with how much, especially the younger generation, sees clout as like the ultimate currency,
Mm.
this is like a viable career path, right? If you're optimizing for that, if they think there's no way to get money, but this is a guaranteed route to attention.
So the quote tweet that I saw to this was someone saying "Patriot," right,
There's a
with
lot of that.
77,000 likes and 800,000 views.
There's so much of that. And hey, I understand why they feel the way that they do, man. Like there's been a mass trauma ritual across the internet that like everyone is screwed. And it started really during the pandemic, right? Where from that point forward, the social pressure and the psychological torment that people have been through, it's only seemed like it's been cranked up. You know what I mean? Like we go through this global pandemic where all this crazy stuff we're forced to do, like cattle going through it. And then what we get to the end of it, like, okay, the world will go back to normal in 3 or 4 years. And then we have AI right after. It's like, yo, we
Yeah,
can't catch a break, man.
AI in an almost world war as
Yeah.
well. So, so yeah, the next piece is continuing along this line of things happening, right? So, this was the guy who set a warehouse on fire in Ontario, California, 1.2 million square foot warehouse, Kimberly Clark warehouse, completely set it ablaze. And in general, this guy, Power to the People, is basically egging this kind of thing on. He said, "Good luck finding a jury to convict this man when 70% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck," is what he said.
That's a very real situation with the K-shaped economy, the wealth inequality. There's only a few methods to solve wealth inequality, right? And it's like my thesis is that they may just try to generate some value out of thin air through crypto and put it in people's pockets that way, right? But you've got to do it. What do you have? Three options. It's like you either take it from people and redistribute, you tax it, which is going to be really hard to do when the bureaucracy is controlled or can be controlled via money,
Mhm.
or you got to create wealth out of thin air without dropping down the value of these rich people's shit. I think crypto's the only option, in my opinion. Like that's why that was always my thesis. Where I was like, where are they gonna put this money into our pockets that doesn't create like mass hysteria? Because I don't think yes, the people who are holding the wealth, they're greedy in terms of like they don't want them to get screwed, but I don't think they'd care if something out of the blue came and put wealth into other people's pockets.
Right. I
Do you
mean,
know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah,
So I think they'd be like, cool, go ahead, do it. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's been my thesis.
for sure, man. I mean, everything that you said there just makes it seem like a logical thing to do for the people who are also in power, right? It's like I don't lose from that.
Could that have been their plan the whole time? Definitely possible.
Absolutely, man. Carl said you helped the BBEG get an even more valuable asset. What's the BBEG, Carl? And then he said you also helped your fellow proletariat out of work, or you also put your fellow proletariat out of work. Thanks. So yeah, so a lot of people were saying like apparently there was some interview where a guy who worked at the warehouse was coming out and saying like I was just starting to make some good money, bro. Like,
Who said this?
somebody who worked at the warehouse. I haven't seen the interview, but people were saying
Oh,
that there
got
was
it.
someone that was there was like, bro, like you just like I just found this job and I was getting ready to get paid, bro.
It's not good to laugh, but like
Oh man.
that's satirical. That's funny. But yeah, what's the next for me?
Next piece here. Apparently, guys, this is out of hand. Another individual connected to top secret US nuclear research has vanished without a trace. This is now the 10th person connected to top secret US nuclear research to go missing or die mysteriously.
Maybe these guys were pretty close with the aliens and they're just beaming them up.
Beam me up, Scotty.
Yeah, for real. I think maybe we're next, brother.
Hey, do not leave me down here. I'm good.
I'll go up. I'll go up for a bit.
Nah, bro. I'm good. I'm just going to camp out. I'm just going to
Dude,
camp out.
you do your thing. I'll come back and talk to you and tell you what
Let
to
me,
say.
let me know, man. Let me know what types of prodding devices they have.
No. We'll be chill. They won't do any of that stuff. That's propaganda.
All right. So another thing was that a fake ledger app on the Apple Store wipes out some people's entire Bitcoin holdings. So a fake ledger app on Apple's Mac App Store just wiped out a user's life savings. American musician Garrett Dutton lost 6 Bitcoin after downloading what he thought was the official app entering his 24-word seed phrase. An on-chain investigator, Zach XBT, traced the stolen Bitcoin exchange deposit addresses and publicly questioned how the app made it through Apple's gatekeeping. No comment yet from Apple. Do you hear anything about that?
I just saw the same post that you're sharing here.
Okay.
That's definitely horror inducing. That's scary.
Yeah, man. Pretty wild. So
The education's just too low on a lot of this stuff, which I'm hopeful that there'll be more accessible means of acquiring all that stuff. But also, you can just get unlucky. It seems like for a lot of situations, people just get really unlucky. They think they're doing everything right.
yeah, no, for sure. There's definitely places where you just get unlucky. I mean, it could be as simple as like if you have there are some things you can do. You know what I'm saying? Like for
Totally.
me, like don't use crypto on your phone. Like just don't even really do that to like the unless it's a centralized app, right? Like
So how
don't.
would they use it on their computer?
Yes,
Got it.
always for me. Anything financial, really. Like
That's a
I'm
good
not using
practice.
my phone for that because yeah, it's just way too easy to make a mistake. I mean, people on their phone in the car, like, bro, you're driving. Like, don't make a financial decision while you're driving.
I think that's totally fair.
Just as an example. And then keeping so I mean, to the extent that you can air gapping things, right? So I look, I have multiple devices. I've got like a burner computer, you know what I mean, that I use for all of that kind of stuff to keep these types of things from ever even being likely, at least.
No, you should definitely think about all of that as much as you can. I think a lot of people don't think about it until it's too late, and then they wish they did. So definitely do not make that mistake. Use these things as inspiration to get your stuff sorted. You only, like it's a lot of work to do once, but then it can save you a lot of headache as well.
100%, man. And for instance, if you're that guy who had $3 million of XRP, I think
XRP, yeah.
it might be worth paying a few $100 to get a new laptop. You know what I mean? Like a separate device. Moving forward, we had the Iran and the US, after coming to the idea of doing a 2-week ceasefire, they had peace talks over the weekend in Islamabad, Pakistan. Those talks failed. Okay. And those talks failed. And one of the things that came out of that was the US saying that they were going to do a naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Now we're going to talk about this a little bit later because there's a lot of funny stuff going on about that. But essentially, yeah. So what's happening here is Iran has essentially blocked the Strait of Hormuz by attacking ships that have been going through it that are not following their rules, or rather, at the beginning they did that, and now it's like just don't go through, and we won't attack you. Eventually, what happens is uh, they say, well, we want to start collecting tolls. Okay, like you're going to pay us if you're going to come through the Strait of Hormuz. This is the way that we're also going to like get reparations for all the damage that's been done throughout this war. Makes sense to an extent. Like cool. The U.S. is saying, look, we're not having that. You guys don't control this waterway. Uh, no, you can't do that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to block the whole thing off. So you can't also pick favorites and let other ships through if you want, and or charge somebody a toll if you do or you don't. You know what I mean? Like, nah, we're not doing that. We want to have control over the Strait of Hormuz, or at least not Iran having it. So they are now putting a blockade on their blockade. And so with that, now what's happening is, well, some ships have turned around right as they implemented this. This was yesterday in the morning, essentially, they did this. And then after that, you have apparently China was like, yo, uh, you're not going to stop us from getting our ships, because apparently around 80% of Iran's exports are actually going to China. And the US's main goal is actually to block Iranian ships, right? So anything going to and from Iran is what they're trying to stop from going through. And so China's like, hey, y'all can't meddle in our affairs, bro. Like, we're not doing that. And I think today there was a report that some Chinese vessel did actually get through the blockade. But I think the reporting on that is kind of funky because, yes, but it wasn't associated with Iran, right? It was maybe going to a Gulf Coast country. So there's a lot of like information here that's not really being reported properly. But so that's kind of the update on what's happening there. And
How do you try to
yeah,
discern what the truth is when there's so many voices?
the only thing that I can do is what the official statements are and read them and see if they make sense or not. you know,
Mm,
like, is there any logic to why they would say or do this or that?
I get you. Yeah, I get why people just check out, man, or go to like the conspiracy stuff there, because at least that like once you get it, at least people feel like, okay, I get it. There's an end. Do you know what I'm saying? Like stuff that you're doing every single day, it's like you gotta go through it again every single day of like, is this horseshit or is this not?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, for sure. Um, I don't know if there's a huge merit in like keeping up with all of these things at this point. The real question is, what's the data around your country's oil reserves, right? What's the data on gas prices on the street?
Mhm.
What's the data on food prices and the potential trajectory of those things? And outside of that, you really can't know what's going on over there. That's the biggest thing that I've taken away. I kind of poked fun at some people in my video today because I'm like, people were coming at me so hard about the Bitcoin. It wasn't Bitcoin. They said crypto. And I'm like, guys, like, I don't know what they said. Like, I'm not in the Middle East. I'm not analyst number three. You know what I mean? So it's not
Mhm.
really about that. The question is what's the narrative? Because I do think that that matters. Like, if you know the narrative, then you can start to discern, once again, why are these things being reported? Right? Is kind of what matters to me more than what is being reported or like the validity of it. It's like,
Mhm.
why is this the information that I'm receiving?
Yeah, I think reading people, incentive structures, and things like game theories, which is what Jang talks about a lot. Like, I think those are some of the most important things out there because if we've been living in like a psychological warfare period for since I've been alive, for since everyone's been alive, like understanding the incentive structures and how messages move is so unbelievably important.
Yeah, man. So that's what I had there. And from now we've got some stuff to react to, Ben.
Just get
Uh,
it, man.
oh my goodness, it's wild out there. So I think this was on Sunday. You had Trump make a very interesting move that has the United States
Oh, I think I saw this. Sorry, go
going
ahead.
crazy. President Trump posts an image portraying himself as Jesus Christ on his Truth social media platform. And there's a ton of fallout and follow up that has come from this. And we
Bro.
got to talk about it. We got
Every person in Canada who, like, is obsessed with hating Trump has sent me that shit, bro. I've had it sent to me so many times, and, like, they sent it to me because I talk about the show to a degree as well, but I'm always like, "Crazy." It's, like, all I say back, like, "I don't care, he's obviously gonna do crazy stuff."
Yeah, I mean, at this point, there's nothing he can do that's going to surprise us.
That's literally what I say all the time. I'm like, I get why you're saying this to a degree, but like, I'm numb.
Yeah, for sure, man. Oh, I saw something about that too. I can't remember where it was from, but it was like he was talking about the corruption and stuff. And he was just like, bro, like, why are we okay? Like, why do we not care almost at this point that this guy's actually blatantly earning so much money off of the presidency and so on and so forth? And I
It's
was just
fucking
like,
wild.
dang, it's crazy to think about because we all are just like, yep, that's what they're doing.
What's the alternative?
That's the crazy part. It's like, that's what they're doing. So oh, and the full thing was, well, because we know that what's going to happen here is by the end of the term, he's just going to pardon everyone in his family, kind of like how Biden did. Like, no difference, right? It's the same thing that just happened. So yeah, they won't get prosecuted. It will just be what it is.
Yeah, man. These are all just symptoms of a very broken system, right? Or perfectly designed. But either way, it's like there's more and more across the board. But that was crazy. Like the whole. And did you see what he said after when people said?
We're gonna go into all.
Okay,
of it.
okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
So moving forward, right? So people were like, what? Like, dude, you can't do that. And so I was also talking to some of my friends, and I'm like, why would he do that? Like, he knows that that's gonna like make the people who support him mad. Like, a lot of MAGA people are very heavy religious people. Like, you've basically taken it to the absolute maximum level at this point. And then I thought to myself, I was like, you know what? Like, technically, maybe he's testing. Maybe he's prodding to see exactly how far he can go, and these people still support him. Do they think that he's Jesus Christ? You know what I mean? So I'm sure he's gotten some interesting data, but eventually he deleted the post, and then yesterday, he came out and responded, and this is what he had
do with Red Crosses.
Mr. President, did you post that picture of yourself depicted as Jesus Christ?
Well, it wasn't depicted. It was me. I did post it, and I thought it was me as a doctor, and had to do with Red Cross as a Red Cross worker there, which we support. And only the fake news could come up with that one. So I just heard about it, and I said, how did they come up with that? It's supposed to be me as a doctor making people better, and I do make people better. I make people a lot better. As an example, the 11,000, I understand your husband's going through treatment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He's going through some very serious cancer treatment, so
yes, sir.
This goes a long way.
Yes, sir, it sure does.
So there's some more context to, like, who is this lady sitting there? Why is he bringing her into the conversation? She's the DoorDash grandma. We'll talk about that in just a second, but we got to get into the memes of this situation here. So anything, Ben, that you wanted to say on this so far?
I feel like he's definitely been to a hospital before. Like, doctors don't dress like that. Like, what?
Crazy. And he says this is the fake news media. So people have been absolutely tearing into my feed is full of the memes. Sir, can we help you? No, I work here. Okay. Trump clearly in his doctor's uniform. So this one here says, here's my doctor dining with the pharmacy reps.
That is super good, dude.
Here is Trump as a pilot. Here.
We laugh so we don't cry. That's super well said.
And definitely plenty of other ones that were fantastic. But I also want to get into this whole DoorDash situation because, like,
fill me in.
What on earth is going on with this lady doing DoorDash? And so there was this moment that was filmed outside the White House, this candid moment. Let me zoom you guys into it.
McDonald's.
I have your DoorDash order for you, Mr. President.
That's right. Look at this. This doesn't look staged, does it?
They're all your favorites.
That's right. These are good. DoorDash is doing a good job.
We
So
try.
the reason for this is the fact that I heard you picked up an extra $11,000 that you didn't think it, because the tax bill was so big, the refund was the biggest you've ever had. Is that a correct statement?
It definitely was.
So Trump has DoorDash send someone to the White House to deliver something. She's from Arkansas. She doesn't live in the DMV in
It's a
DC at
long
all.
trip.
Yeah, it's a pretty long trip. DoorDash also posted about this. It's like a whole thing. And the point of this was to promote his policy of no tax on tips. And he holds this kind of conversation with her, talking about how much this has changed her life and how her husband now they can afford their cancer treatment and stuff because of the extra $11,000 that she made. And it's just turned into this whole big phenomenon of people being like, "Whoa, okay, what's going on?" And now there's an interesting criticism about this that I thought was interesting because people are like, "Oh, this looks so great, right? Like you're helping the person who's not so well off to get no tax on tips, but like this lady's clearly at the age where she might need to retire and she's door dashing. So how
Mhm.
about that? Like, how's the state of the economy in that situation?"
Yeah, why does she even need a job?
So that's an interesting takeaway that some people actually have had from this. But in general, he also kind of like, I guess the reporters started asking him questions, and then she's kind of getting brought into these different, scenarios. And so in the middle of the conversation, Trump asked her
That
this.
men should play women's sports.
I really don't have an opinion on that.
You don't, I'll bet you do.
No, I'm here about no
Pizza.
tax on tips.
Yeah.
So he tried to ask her if men should play in women's sports. She did not have that. She was not having that. Um, there was also a statement that he said about like the big beautiful bill. He was like, we should call it the big beautiful tax bill or whatever, just like big beautiful no tax on tips bill or whatever. And he's just like doing this whole thing. But there's just something about this moment that's absolutely making waves across the internet, and definitely wanted to share that that's something that's going on in the world.
Yeah, that's truly wild, and also reiterates the point that we're saying where like when there's such like a level of being out of touch, even the attempted messages at like sounding like you're cool with the kids, like you're still out of touch in even your attempt to do that because they're just so far apart.
For sure, man. Way, way, way out of the loop. So let me see here. So yeah, the next thing is just kind of was seeing some other stuff come up about Trump. I'm not trying to rag on Trump. It's just like the dude's entertaining at the very minimum, guys. So we gotta see the way that he's been throughout history as well, because he's been like that. So this guy Trey Ferguson said, "This one is going to be hilarious to me until the time of my death." Let's hear Trump talking about something here that you'll find interesting.
Okay. You mentioned the Bible. You've been talking about how it's your favorite book. And you said, I think last night in Iowa, some people are surprised that you say that. I'm wondering what one or two of your most favorite Bible verses are and why.
I wouldn't want to get into it because to me that's very personal. When I talk about the Bible, it's very personal. So I don't want to get into verses. I don't want to get into.
There's no verse that means a lot to you that you think about or cite.
The Bible means a lot to me, but I don't want to get into specifics.
Even to cite a verse that
No,
you like.
I don't want to do that.
You're an Old Testament guy or a New Testament guy?
Probably equal. I think it's just an incredible. The whole Bible is an incredible. I joke. Very much so. They always hold up the Art of the Deal. I say my second favorite book of all time. But I just think the Bible is just something very special.
Okay.
How much of the Bible do you think he's read?
It would have been even better if he said, like the beginning. You know what I mean? Like oh, I read Ecclesiastes or oh snap, look at me. Genesis 1:1. You know what I mean? Like if he was just like, that's my favorite. My favorite is the very beginning. Probably none of it. It's crazy. Yes, about like he actually mentioned his own book when talking about the Bible. Like that was something that came up in that conversation. That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't think he's read much or any of the Bible, but definitely he's also like there's been things that have come out where people have clipped up things that he said to like very much to the contrary of that as well. So yeah, it's
fair.
Who knows? These politicians are different in every room they're in.
Yeah, man. I think definitely just fascinating to see his ability to field questions that he may or may not be able to answer. Right. So that's something that goes back as far as whenever that was. Moving forward, we had this video has been going super viral of these people who are getting paid to work their jobs wearing a headset that is essentially filming what they're doing so that AI could potentially at some point replace them. Now, I don't know if that's exactly what we're seeing here, but we are seeing these people
Isn't
getting paid and filming themselves working with
DoorDash
these
doing that
headsets.
too?
Potentially. I have no idea. I have no idea.
It definitely could not be them, but there is somebody who's one of the task companies that is giving people extra things for doing tasks and filming themselves doing it.
Wow.
It could not be DoorDash, so if I'm wrong, definitely fact check that.
I'll play this real quick.
ठीक है, सब आदमी लगाया है कैमरा, इसमें मिनट सब चालू है, ठीक है, सब भाई लगाया है कैमरा, ठीक है, ये है ना, ये लगाया है कैमरा, ठीक है, कैमरा मुड़ी में स्पॉटलाइट में लगा हुआ है कैमरा अब.
So there's that one. Another wild incident that happened over the past 24-48. A worker has died at Amazon at a warehouse in Oregon last week, apparently. And employees apparently were told to keep working for over an hour as the body remained on the floor. One manager told the workers, just turn around and don't look. Let's get back to work.
Is this validated?
It's from More Perfect Union. I've seen some reports about this circulating around for sure.
That's absurd.
So someone responded to this, Sebastian, and said, "This is why my portfolio is 30% Amazon."
That's dark.
Super dark, super crazy. And I've seen a few of those types of tweets. So crazy situation there. But yeah, I mean, Amazon has been known for that kind of activity as far as just like no levels of care for their the well-being of some of their employees and being super strict on deadlines and things of that nature.
Allegedly.
Yeah, well, and I can't even imagine. I don't even know what I was gonna say.
No, I definitely believe it. I'm just saying allegedly because that's what you're supposed to.
No, of course. The funny part is this story that popped into my mind, which I guess I won't dive into, but it was this lady telling a story on TikTok of some of the things that she's had to deal with Amazon.
Working at Amazon?
Yeah.
There's that many people now that everyone can be a creator. It's difficult to keep a lid on that for sure.
Yeah. So allegedly, let me tell you, 100% allegedly, I love my life. So moving forward, we're seeing from Nick Shirley. Nick Shirley is this guy who's been like exposing fraud across the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually did look this up because I was like, there's no absolute way. But apparently in California, there is a bill that is being advanced called the Stop Nick Shirley Act.
No way.
To criminalize investigative journalism. And this is a .org website from California here. Okay. So someone at least, right, has filed this thing to keep him from doing what he's doing. I don't know the extent of what's in this bill, but clearly they're trying to do something to stop this guy.
Yeah, he's definitely got people pretty riled up all across the board from his investigations. I've never really watched his stuff. Have you?
I haven't, man. I don't know why it just doesn't interest me. I don't know. I haven't watched any of that.
No, I would agree.
Moving forward, Nikita Beer, the head of product at Twitter, actually came out and he made this little post yesterday. I guess it was today, even potentially. He said, "Crypto has had a rough year. Maybe we should launch something to fix it." And people are starting to respond to that. And one of the major things to keep in mind is that when you look at his bio, he's the head of product at X, but he's also an advisor at Solana. Okay, so keep that in mind. And we know in general that X has been working on a X money, right? So that could come out at any point in time. And people are speculating on whether or not that will include crypto. And the guy that had that original tweet is basically saying that that's exactly what's going on here. And they're creating the WeChat of the United States with X.
Yeah, I felt like that kind of stuff was only a matter of time, and that kind of brought crypto Twitter back to life, at least temporarily. So we'll see how long it takes for them to roll that out and see what it is, because it could be nothing, but it could also be massive.
Facts, man. It would definitely be like if you think about the craziness of what Elon has done, X is probably one of the least crazy things, but X money could get it there, right?
Totally.
Yeah. So I thought that this one might be interesting to you, Ben. This guy was saying, I love how responsive the PSP UI still feels after 50 years. And then this guy said, today everything is so shitified to the point of opening any program or moving to another menu literally takes almost forever. What do you think of this?
Yeah, well, a lot of people are actually going back towards the older experiences because a lot of the extra things that slow down a lot of the core experiences or the navigation stuff like that are so optional, but they do make a lot of the platforms more money. And so when that is your primary incentive driver, they're gonna do that, right? So yeah, a lot of people are shifting back. I also think there's gonna be a massive resurgence in terms of gaming and tech that is a little more minimalist or like soul focused, right? Where like this is this because a lot of the games, bro. I tried to play Call of Duty with my friends the other day. I haven't played games like that in a long, long time, and I couldn't even figure out which Call of Duty to download. First of all, I was like, there's fucking 40 of them, and then I mean, even that seemed recent when I went and looked at the store, and then to download it, I needed like 250 gigabytes of storage.
Oof.
So this is so ridiculous. I remember just popping in Halo 3 into my Xbox, going on there and talking smack on the chat, man. Like that's what you want, simple.
Do they even have CDs anymore for the games?
You can get them in some instances, but they definitely try to push the more digital only. But they do have them. Like a lot of the new consoles, they all make versions that are only digital. Like, a lot of them do. But you can still get physical things. Like Nintendo is still big on the physical cartridge. Like you can still put that little thing in there, and the discs. Some people still rock with those. It's also better for resale, right? Because if you buy it digitally,
yeah,
you can't really transfer ownership. NFTs will maybe solve that digitally.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think. I mean, for something that's fungible, though, it might not make as much sense. But
I'm sure they'll figure something out.
It could still happen there. All right. So another thing that happened over the past 48 hours or so was this popular Twitter influencer, Dom Lucre. I don't really know how to say his name. So in general, Nikita Beer, the head of product at Twitter, has been like making a bunch of edits and like changing payouts and infrastructure and incentives rather for people to use the platform and get paid to do it. And so one of the things was that he said all aggregators had their payouts reduced to 60% this cycle. We will add another 20% deduction in the next cycle. And so Dom Lucre basically said, he responded to this. He was like saying, yes, I use breaking all the time. It's clickbait because Nikita was also talking about using breaking. Like people who do that are going to like get promoted or whatever. And he was like, look, I rarely use breaking. I post hundreds of times and very few are breaking. My posts are news posts. It's a problem because I do well on a social media platform and the other people are mad at me. And so people decided to give him a community note. And it was just a community note of all of the 91 examples that he had used breaking on his posts, which was pretty funny.
That's super timely because I literally said to our guys, I was like, yo, let's not use breaking on our stuff before this whole thing happened. And this was the exact reason as to why. And just so an aggregator, guys, just in case you aren't in the content world, this is basically someone who takes people's content, a recurring theme that we've talked about. It's already happened to us a bunch of times because there's a lot of the biggest names in Twitter. That's all they are. They take other people's content and then they distribute it. And because they have a bigger following, they're the one that gets retweeted and shared. And so it's our content, our effort, all this stuff, but they get all the views and followers from it.
And potentially, I don't know how the monetization actually works. I mean, do they get paid from that?
Oh, I would assume so. It's the impressions from their content. Yeah. I'm pretty certain they get paid.
Which is pretty wild, right?
That's theft. like, I'm totally cool. People reacting to our content or even like posting our content full outright if we get some sort of credit, but like they're getting paid and we don't get credit.
Yeah. We talked one time about people literally cropping our watermark and putting their own.
Crazy shit.
Like, bro, what?
I could not imagine doing that and being like, yeah, this is chill.
That's insane, bro.
Absurd.
Insane. So moving forward here, this one was just super wild and random. There was a leader in Africa, a Uganda military chief, demanded $1 billion from Turkey and their most beautiful woman in that country as a wife.
Who
If
decides
not,
that?
if not, he's closing their embassy and ceasing all diplomatic relations.
Who decides what's the most beautiful?
I don't know, man. I have no idea. That's a question
Well,
for
if he
for
wants
that
them to meet
guy.
their demands, he's at least got to have some sort of criteria.
I
That's
think he
absurd.
since deleted that tweet because I had the actual OG tweet, but it's gone now. So pretty wild there. I've got pure memery for you guys.
Jump into the memes.
So obviously we had Donald Trump making some crazy moves over the weekend by blocking the Strait of Hormuz with the blockade. And so this guy said, Don Sue, break an enemy blockade by blockading their blockade. Don Sue. A play on Lao Tzu's The Art of War, very popular book. Apparently this came out from Chinese social media saying here is the Iran toll, and then here is the US toll, just a few nautical miles out further.
That sucks.
And so people started to come up with some ideas. He said this is a new startup idea. You know, in between the Iran toll and the US toll, why wouldn't you set up a money exchange? Come on. You know, do a little currency exchange in the middle.
Or like a crypto ATM, like
Yeah.
a Bitcoin ATM. They still have those at the convenience stores around here.
Yeah, man. This guy said, waiting for the EU and China to get in on the blockade action.
Why not? Everyone's eating.
So I thought that was pretty funny. Moving forward, we had so Twitter also has been updating the auto translate feature. And so this guy said, this is Twitter with the auto translation feels somehow like this. And and it's crazy because this tweet is also actually being auto translated from Russian, I believe.
Yeah, when they did this, a lot of Japanese posts started going crazy on Twitter.
Yes. Yes. And then moving forward, you had Justin Trudeau and Katy Perry over at Coachella. And apparently, while he was there, he tweeted, Hungarians voted for change and a renewed commitment to democratic institutions after years of erosion under Viktor Orban. A powerful and positive signal to democracies around the world that citizens can reclaim institutions and restore respect for rights. And someone quoted him and said, sending this from Coachella is wild. That was
a lot of drama around that because they banned single-use plastics in all of Canada, and then at Coachella is him having alcohol or a drink, I don't know if it's alcohol, out of a red Solo cup.
Yes, I did see that one as well. So this guy is drinking out of a plastic cup after banning them for the entire country while hanging out with Katy Perry at Coachella.
And I see people being like, well, let the man live his life. He's not the prime minister anymore. It's like, he did a lot of shit. like that's crazy. And then also in Canada, the Liberals got their majority from their floor crossers. So now there's a Liberal majority government in Canada now. So multiple more years of that. Yeah.
So quick piece here. We had Mom, can you pick me up? Why? I forgot to close my oil futures contract, and now I have 84,000 gallons of crude oil waiting for me in Oklahoma by Sunday. So this is an email that he got from Interactive Brokers.
That's so good.
About the physical delivery of crude. So guys, definitely close out your contracts or roll them over if you got some
crude oil,
some long on crude oil. And this one was interesting. This guy was a no context meme. This guy's driving an Amazon truck here.
Yeah. It's gotta be AI.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be. It's gotta be.
What's up?
Would you say Sharp? Okay. Word. Appreciate that. Um, okay, wait, what was this one? Oh, okay, yeah. So this was super interesting. Moving forward, we had Fetty. Let me just play this. Let me play this for you guys and let y'all see what's going on.
Hey, Delta 1738, do you have time for a quick question?
It's loud.
Go for it. Are you familiar with the Yardie Fetty walk?
I am not.
Oh, bummer. He just has a song that's 1738. Just remind me of it.
No, unfortunately, no.
Dude, that's fucking awesome. Your camera went out.
Oh no. Dude said Gen Z has entered the workforce.
Honestly, like, I think that's a pretty fair question, man. You get opportunity to bond there. 1738. Hey. She said, hey, what's up? Hello. Seen you pretty as soon as you came in the door. It's kind of a heater, so I get why you asked. But yeah, Gen Z has entered the workforce.
That's absolutely hilarious, man.
I always ask people if they know songs or references from memes or vines. Those always hit.
Okay, we've got a little bit of a pickle.
So what causes this outage on your camera? Is it overheating of the internal battery?
Usually that's what it actually is. And sometimes it's the actual battery dying.
Got it.
But
you should, because you can get ghost batteries that you can just plug in.
Yeah, it's actually usually not the battery.
Okay.
But I also have a fan, and sometimes I don't have it on, so that's just on me.
So, yeah. My thing only doesn't do that because I picked a camera that doesn't overheat, and then I have a ghost battery in there, so I can just crank it whenever.
Ben has a nicer camera than me, guys.
Honestly, yours is probably more expensive. Mine's pretty old, but it was like designed for this use case.
Exactly. So the other day, I guess it's like almost a week ago now, Trump posted world's most powerful reset. President DJT, and this guy said, my boomer parents after I fixed their computer by turning it off and on again. This one was super interesting. It was around the space mission. So let's hear what these guys were talking about.
What's up, fool? Apollo 13, homie. Houston, we got a problem or what, eh? 0 G's more like 3 G's here, homie. Hey, aliens, pull up. What's up? I'm looking for my Princess Leia. My Jabba the slut, fucker. Hey, hater, fool. Hey, American, me more like a Martian, homie. They call me, hey, Little Dipper, and this is my homie, Big Dipper. We're looking for the man with the DeLorean. Homie, you mean Mandalorian. What's up, fool? Apollo 13, homie. Houston, we got a problem or
I think it's replaying.
I just love the Houston. We got a problem or what?
That's great.
Other than that, I think those are my memes for the day. Other thing that we had is just a couple of community things that we wanted to talk about from the previous episode, as well as we had a very custom video made from producer Asipa today. So we wanted to share that as well. But we had some interesting comments from the last episode. There was a little bit of controversy.
People were pissed. I didn't know we were sellouts, bro.
I didn't know. I didn't know that you guys would be so upset about a guest. So let's definitely talk about it, because we had Peter Diamandis on last time around, and I thought it was a pretty interesting conversation. And we had some very heated comments in the comment section. So first thing I saw was "Can't Punish Me. The choice of recent guests is a bit puzzling." 6 likes on that. So there's some signal there. I said, super curious as to what you mean by this. And L Lift WPLVJ said, yeah, I don't know. Definitely a different vibe, dare I say. So I can't really properly respond to that because I don't know what you mean or what's different in your eyes about the recent guests in particular, especially because there's also not much connection between them.
Because this was always the goal, though, right? Was to talk to people closer to the conversation. And so I guess the anger would stem from the fact that in their world, like the AI people ruining the world, he's one of them. And so the fact that we would even talk to him, that's us selling out, I guess. But like, how do you solve a problem without discussing it and understanding how people think that are involved with the problem, right? Like, I'm sure there's another comment that we'll talk about here where they're like, you should have pushed back on them more. It's like, they're the man's opinions. What good would be done by me monopolizing the conversation, telling him why he is wrong? That means he's never going to come back, right? We only had 1 hour, so it's a fixed amount of time. I would have loved to have asked questions more so, and Keith did a better job than me on pushing on him a little bit. But like, I also know the guy personally, right? So like, that's like you having someone over to your house and like shitting on them, and then expecting them to come back and bring their friends. Like if this is to be a place where we want to actually have the hard conversations, it's got to be a place where they're going to come on, right? And so if I just purely was like super argumentative the entire time, it would make for bad content. It would probably do temporarily good, right? Because people would be like, good, like it's about time they did this. But these same people wouldn't come back and watch the stream every single day either way, right? So I get where they're coming from. I get the frustration. I think it's a little short-sighted.
Yes. So there was another really specific comment that I think really encapsulates, I think, some of the things. So Chic Posh Style said, I have a healthy amount of skepticism about the altruism of trillionaires. Based on this interview, this man believes that a ruling class of ultra-wealthy people will essentially live on Mars. And yet, when pushed to answer a question regarding the potential abuse of power, thanks for raising the issue, Keith, he dodged the question like an expert politician. No clear answer given. In many words, paraphrasing, he said, well, we wouldn't have an incentive. Okay, two things here. He clearly believes that he will be, or already is, a part of this ruling class, so his objectivity is questionable. Second, he's acting like we don't have centuries of academic study around this exact principle. Quote, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. British historian Lord Acton, 1887. They absolutely will be corruptible. At that point, these trillionaires will have ascended to the literal stars. It's not hard to believe that people doing God-like things will not begin to see themselves as gods, toying with the mortals left on Earth, like Zeus on Mount Olympus for sport. I would have appreciated more pushback from you, Ben. We, your listeners, are an intelligent audience. I can see through this man like the clearest water. At least he gave us their game plan, though. Just collecting one infinity stone at a time. Got it, Thanos. And Ben said, hey, these are the man's opinions. My job here is to facilitate the conversation, and the internet decides how I specifically did that wrong for each individual. It's an impossible task. Wishing you all the best. Martel said, trust us, bro. We care about each and every one of you. But definitely kudos to Keith and Ben for bringing us this information. All we need is the information. We decide what we do with it afterward.
Great. That's awesome. That's really the whole point, right? And their request for me to push back on them more, we would have been stuck on that point forever. He clearly sees the world completely differently than you do. And so is the goal of the conversation to explain why his view is wrong, or is it to give us more insight on what it is, period, so that we even know what you like? A lot of these people are complaining, saying like, this shouldn't happen, but how can you stop something that you don't even understand? Right? Like that's also my big thing too, is that I think a lot of these people, their efforts would be better put in terms of understanding these tools, using the ones that you feel more aligned with your desired future, like open source versions or whatever it may be, and using these tools to amplify your productivity and ability to actually have these conversations. Like for that person, I would love for you to facilitate the conversation. Go start a podcast. I'll be the first to watch. And I'll come watch you, see you do it. Like a lot of people, they throw stones and they've never done this task. So I'm very excited to open up in the future some call-ins, because I would love to talk to you guys. I'd be more than willing to talk to you and explain my logic and thought processes. I'd be happy to do that. So we'll do that, and it'll be fun. And I think that's what this is all about. So like shitting on us for having a conversation that we were always planning on having, and then also some people claiming that Keith is like selling out for talking to this guy. That's just ludicrous. Like, come on. That's like, what good does that do?
Let me see if I can find that one, because that one was interesting too.
Like, I get their anger and their frustration, but like, compartmentalize here. Like, Keith talking to someone that you feel is associated with the problem does not make him a sellout for doing that. Like, that's just wild logic.
So the Lyft PLVJ guy said, one thing I've came to realize is that pretty much every one of you guys, yes, finance, content creators, and educators, is that we're all effed economically, so you'd rather benefit from this crash while pretending you're teaching. I'm honestly disgusted, man. Like, I remember some of the things you would talk about regarding ethics, morals, and how to do good in life without being a parasite to this world. But here you guys go, just basically going against a lot of the stuff you preached. But it was great while it lasted. I've been subbed to Keith since 20K subs. So this is more of a rant of disappointment. I don't need anyone to agree with me. I hope this comment doesn't get deleted for others who are definitely feeling the same. And so I said, hey, man, I hear you. And always going to be here for an open dialogue. So no comments are getting deleted for expressing what you feel. Would love to get a better understanding of what you feel has changed. And then Ben had responded. He said, so what would teaching look like to you? Us talking to someone you disagree with makes us a parasite, really struggling to follow the logic. So yeah, so just in general, I'm genuinely curious as to like what this feeling is, because I've seen it on my channel as well, of people saying like, every one of you finance creators and educators do this thing. I'm like, okay, well, what is the thing? Like, is it succeeding? Is it like growing? Like, I don't know what exactly that thing is. Is it that I like, for instance, one of the things that someone said was, oh, now you've paywalled everything. It's like, dude, I have channel members for people who want more content from me, right? I'm doing even more for those people. Like, I don't know what the problem is.
There's no one louder than someone who was never going to support you anyways.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. I've been growing stuff on the internet for a decade at this point, and this kind of stuff always happens, and it's an inevitable reality, right? Because people, like, you'll say, hey, this show is going to change, which I literally, if you can scroll back to recent episodes, I'm like, we're going to grow this show. We're going to talk to more people. We want to be closer to the conversation. We said this out loud. And then it happens and they're like, you changed, bro. It's like, yeah, that was the point. Like, we're growing this show for the purpose of exploration and education. And so I think a lot of these people are in, like, a lot of the world is in very bad situations because the people who were gatekeeping the information understood that we don't actually even have to gatekeep anything at this point. We just have to keep people fighting over shit that doesn't actually matter, right? Like pointing fingers, calling each other's names. Like, I'm all about true meritocracy in terms of thought, debate, discourse, and that can't really happen when like this is instantly where things go, right? And I'll like, okay, if we yelled at someone in the AI space, we would just instantly be blacklisted from the conversation. And so if we're saying, okay, we're closer to where people watching this are experiencing this reality, wouldn't you rather us talk to them than someone else? Like case in point, sure, I guess that lady or whoever that person was saying, oh, I should have pushed back on them way harder. Man, we asked that guy questions he's never been asked before. You saw how he reacted. He's
Right.
like, so like, do you want us to just sprint into there and like that's not constructive, but clearly people aren't thinking through the variables at play in terms of what's going on. So I agree. Our audience is intelligent. So let's use that intelligence to think about the bigger picture here. My 2 cents.
Yeah, I love it. It's like, yeah, the whole goal of the show is to bring where we're at to like these conversations and these people's like, yo, this is what people are talking about. Like, what is your answer to these questions? What are you actually thinking about this? And so for instance, Peter, hyper optimist. If you watch Moonshots, that's the whole thing. It's like just like AI, it's going to change the world. It's going to be amazing. Look at how fast we're innovating and this and that. And some people hate it. Right? A lot of people don't watch that show because they're like, dude, like these guys are crazy.
Totally.
But now he comes into our environment and you guys are here with us saying, yo, what you're saying here is crazy. And when you can intellectually like outline why, we get to ask that question to him in real time. And that's super, super powerful because he's not having those conversations over there, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the goal.
And then Beating the Odds, sorry, says maybe push back on harder questions, though. It's not disrespectful to ask hard and relevant questions more often. So again, we asked questions that were definitely off the track that he normally talks about. And also for the flow of conversation, like when you're saying that, do we ask the same question 5 times? Because these are a philosophical debate, right? And so if you want me to say like, why do you think like that? He's going to say the same thing 5 times. So I'd rather go to other places just to see, okay, what are the things attached to this that gave him his worldview that then allows us to see how these people think and operate to then maybe fill that gap, right? If we're just saying the same thing of like, oh, that's blue, no, that's red. Does me saying, is that the other color 5 times do anything constructive? In my opinion, no. But that's, again, you guys are entitled to your opinion completely.
Yeah. I mean, like, for instance, when he was responding to that thing about well, wouldn't the people who keep getting richer and richer, wouldn't they eventually kind of like, couldn't that lead to some oppression of some sort?
Mhm.
And like, I mean, honestly, in that moment, what he said was something that I hadn't thought about. So I'm like, let me think about that, right? Before I'm immediately just like, oh, well, da da da. Like he had an interesting statement of, is there an incentive? Because I've never, because my mind went to like, is there ever an incentive? Right? Like, what does that look like? And so I'm just trying to draw all the parallels to what that looks like in life. And at that point, the conversation's kind of moved. And you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And so it's like that comment that was left was a really good comment in that regard of like, well, no, there's never really, there's always going to be, right, some level of corruption of the power as it is being distributed. And so, anyways,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
I see why they would think that's absolute horseshit. Like that's
Mhm.
totally understandable. Like look at what's going on in society. People have abused the crap out of power. So I get why you would think that. But yeah, I think conversation is the best way to get to some better situation. And if it's just like us versus them mentality and we're only talking amongst ourselves, how does anything get better?
Yeah, Sir Night Night said, I'm definitely not a fan of Salim. I think Moonshots is tone deaf, but I'm not expecting for Ben and Keith to change his mind. That's ludicrous.
I've said that out loud that I think that they are hyperbolic or let's say tone deaf, pick your word, whatever. That I don't think that they'd be offended in any of us saying that, right? Like that's their opinion, just like you're entitled to yours. And that's another thing we've said on the show before. Like I've literally said that I think the AI people are mostly hyping stuff a lot. Like I've said that all the time. So it is what it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So cool. Happy to have these conversations. I just, yeah, I legitimately would love a response to like what's changed or what do you feel about that's different about the guests? Because it's interesting to me. We want to continue to develop the community.
But I don't know if they'll be like I'm very curious to see it as well. But a lot of these are feeling things, right? And so people try to attach words to something that like they're lashing out with emotion, and then later they'll try to reinforce it with logic. But it was really purely an emotional exchange, which yeah, that does make these things complicated. And I'm also well aware that these things are very heated, right? Like if that guy is also like run through the situation of if someone every day they're forced to go into the world, work a job they don't like, and they have no futures, right? And they're saying it's this technology, then them even like us even talking to this guy is like us talking to like they would say it's like talking to the devil,
Mm,
right? And so
mm,
then in their mind is like, is there any justification for platforming, another word people love,
yes.
or talking to the devil, right?
Wow.
So like
Wow.
that's their thought process that I can understand. I just don't think you're looking enough at the bigger picture. And do you want to be right that these things are messed up, or do you want a better situation? And I know that the former is what happens, right? In most circles across the internet, people just repeat what they believe to reinforce that they're right, and it's the same thing, and they're still having the same debate over and over and over again. Whereas I'd rather have some discourse that actually is like stimulating, right?
For sure. Um, Super fascinating to think about that word platforming and how it's used. It's kind of very much so cancer. It's like the opposite of cancel culture. It's like it's a part of cancel culture. It's like you if you platform this person, then you've done some disservice to humanity.
Mhm.
But what was the platform that was given to them? Was the platform something where they were being asked questions that allowed them to like explain themselves or to question, right, the things that they're constantly saying, right? So it's not really a, oh, you platformed this person. I mean, you could be on Piers Morgan and he just grills you the whole time. Did he platform
Does
them
it do
by,
anything? Yeah.
you know what I mean? So I don't know.
It's a fascinating thing. I think this is all very new technology, which I fully understand, and especially in a show like this where it is live, people kind of feel like it's a party, right? And so if we're all at the party saying like this stuff's messed up, or it seemingly is at least messed up, and now we're having one of the faces over to our party.
Mm.
Why'd you invite this guy, bro? What the
That's
fuck's
actually
wrong
very
with you?
interesting. That's
Right?
very interesting.
But
Yeah.
I've always saw in this that this is just a natural human trait, and so that's why I would always invite people that didn't fit in the group because I thought that was really stupid.
Mm.
So like, because a lot of people hide behind their group, and then groupthink sets in, and that could be like that can be a con across the board. So I think spreading of conversations is the best way to do it. And Sir Night Night had a very good point here, where they said you're not going to expand your thinking unless you listen to people who don't share your worldview. I spend more time trying to find people I disagree with that I also think are smart.
Mm.
That I think that's like the cheat code to getting ahead in life is like, how do you find the people that almost completely disagree with you, but you can see, oh, this person's smart because then you clearly have some bias or blind spots yourself,
Right.
right?
Yep. And also like the reason that we have these conversations, because a lot of people would just be like, why are you guys like even talking to this and like paying attention to the haters and this and that? And it's because we want to help the people who are coming to these conversations with that kind of an attitude. Like it can actually, hopefully, eventually, you recognize where there may be some things that you could be thinking about or looking at differently.
Totally. And yeah, we're gonna make mistakes too. Like we're
Mhm.
humans. We're doing this live. Like we're going to screw things up, and so it's all part of the journey. It's what makes it exciting, and we'll acknowledge when we screw up and when we can do better. And so, case in point, I'll try to push more when I feel like it makes sense. But also, I'm not going to monopolize the conversation and stall it. When also we're on a fixed time, right? So like
That's the thing.
if you if we only have 60 minutes and we got to think about like the long-term viability of this business and what it means after we stop the production, like there's so many variables that people aren't considering when they're watching this, right?
Mhm,
Which
mhm, mhm.
totally fair. But when you have the situation of Joe Rogan where he has the point of leverage where it is the biggest thing that person does all year, and so that gives him the kind of leverage to take risks and like ask questions that almost no one else gets that opportunity, which is what we're trying to build this into. But until we have the leverage from the audience perspective that can only come from having people on like Peter, we don't get that opportunity.
Mhm.
Do you know what I'm saying? So like the outcome that they want, they don't realize like one of the only ways to get to it is to build the leverage from doing what we tried to do.
100%.
You can't just jump there because then they'll be like, we don't want to play with you anymore. You don't, right? Because if you don't have the eyeballs, like why is Joe Rogan able to have on whoever he wants? It's because he has more leverage than anyone on the internet.
100%, man.
Ben is good at pushing people's buttons, I guess.
So last piece of community stuff that I wanted to go with here is, so we finished our Spotify playlist.
Yeah.
And is it in the description?
I don't think it's in the description. Did you send me the link though? I'll add it right now.
No worries. We had a SEPA put together this little video for the release of this. So here we go.
That's dope.
Mutant Marcus.
That's fire. Way to go, Asipa.
Yeah, man. Very, very cool. That was awesome.
Super cool. And it's now been added to the description box. So if you just go down to our Spotify playlist, I'll add that.
Fantastic. And if you have not already, always feel free to leave us a fantastic review over here on Spotify. We really do appreciate it. It is super meaningful to us, helps us to get more exposure, helps us to have conversations with some of the people that you hate as well. But yeah.
Totally. No, and we appreciate all of you guys. That's the whole point, right? Like the whole point is discourse, and the world gets more messed up when you can't have conversations. And when you increase the cost of debate, you increase the likelihood of censorship and control, right? So I think that normalizing conversations with people you disagree with is super important. And there's also so many variables. Like before you get angry and your emotions spur up, like first of all, realize you're in control of that emotion, and then think more holistically of like what's going on here, right? Like think about all the variables at play. That's like what I try to do all the time, and it's a very fruitful endeavor. Because Carl said one thing right here that's super important. He's like, every interview is a commercial to prospective investors too. They have to sell the company and services at all times, right? Like understanding people's incentives whenever they're doing anything also makes things a lot more clear. And then you don't have to get as emotionally charged to it because you're like, okay, this makes sense that they would say that because I understand this variable, blah, blah, blah.
Totally. What'd you say?
Carl's like, was that animation made with AI? Must not be all bad. getting people fired up.
I see. Yeah.
And that because the world's also been split in two, right? Like the haves and have-nots. And there's a lot of people who are building these big audiences, talking to the everyday person, and we're part of that group. We've had a lot of them on. But I do think the next evolution of that is crossing the chasm, right? Like talking to these people, being like, yo, you guys seem like crazy people. Like, what's going on here? We should have some say in this. And yeah.
100%, man. It's a lot of people talking in echo chambers. So our goal is to really, really bring that conversation to Main Street.
And that'll piss some people off, but it'll also attract the right people.
For sure.
Right,
Like the
right?
people who actually care.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that my opinions on anything are right. I'm wrong more often than I'm right, but I want to talk to everyone so that the people who are smarter than me can hopefully see that and have conversations beyond us.
100%. 100%.
Dope. Awesome. We'll definitely go check out the playlist. It is linked down below, and go show Asian Dad Energy some love. He was an awesome guest, and he'll be putting out consistent YouTube content. So go keep tabs on his journey. We appreciate you guys all tuning in. And did you get confirmation for that episode tomorrow, Keith? Is that going down?
Yeah, as far as I can now, yeah. Yep, it's going down tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. It's gonna be a crazy one.
Crazy one. You definitely do not want to miss that one. So hopefully it comes to fruition. With these things, we never speak in absolutes again, because we don't have the kind of like leverage where, like, for example, Joe Rogan can get anyone, but also people won't cancel on Joe.
Right.
Right.
For sure.
Whereas for us, it's like we're still like, oh, we're getting closer and closer to that point. But yeah, so hopefully tomorrow at 5 p.m. I really hope it happens.
Well, I told them that we just told the live, and they said that sounds good. So
cool. All right, now we got people to hold them accountable. Awesome. Cool. But that'll be super awesome. Yeah. Do you want to say who it is, or do you want to wait?
That's on you. This is one of your types of guests, man.
Okay. Well, we're having on Emmett Smith and his son EJ, right?
That's correct.
So really cool story. Emmett is one of the best football players of all time, but he also really kind of like the thesis of the show. He crosses into all sorts of niches. He seems like just a very good role model for men across the board from what I've seen. And he seems like a very nice dude who, like, literally everybody I've ever heard talk about him who has had run-ins with him, they always say how he's super, super fantastic.
That's
and
cool.
then Keith happened to have his son in his community, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the connection.
That's correct.
Super cool. And my one friend, Zach, he's like a lifelong Cowboys fan, and so he doesn't know that this is happening yet. So hopefully it definitely happens, and I'll give him a shout out tomorrow, because he'll lose his mind. His family is obsessed with the Cowboys, and I've heard from him a bunch of times. He's like, no, Emmett's like just a great dude. Like, he's a really great dude. I'm like, you know him? He's like, no, but like everybody knows. So
that's hilarious.
Yeah, and we'll also talk about money when it comes to NFL, financial literacy, and then also because EJ is now going into the NFL.
Well, he's not into the NFL now, but also dealing with, right, whether or not that was happening. That's kind of just been this whole thing is like, is he going into the NFL or not? What does that mean for his future? How do kids going through that deal with that? It's a very interesting time for him, for sure.
Oh, for sure. And we'll be able to talk about that whole NIL landscape too, for sports fans that are out there, which is name, image, and likeness. That completely changed the entire foundation of college athletics in a crazy way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that'll be super interesting. And then, yeah, Emmett will be a great conversation as well. So that'll be tomorrow at 5 p.m. So definitely tune in for that.
Fantastic.
Yep. Cool. Awesome. Anything else, Keith?
No, that's it for me, folks. Make today the best day of your life.
That's it, guys. Absolutely. Be the light you want to see. And we will see all of you guys tomorrow at 5 p.m. for that bonus episode. You got to be there live. It's going to be a good one. So definitely tune in. Thank you all so much for watching. Play the outro and have a wonderful, wonderful day. See you guys.